Good evening, everyone. Community Board 1 is now called to order. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski, Lisa Bamonte, Louis Baraselli, Gina Barros, Eric Rosaitis, Tom Burrows, Iris Cabrera, Bill Caponegro, Frank Carbone, Stephen Chesler, Michael Chiricella, Teresa Cinciata, Joshua Cohn, Arthur Dibinowski, T. Willis Elkins, Julia Amanda Foster, Samuel Fransos, Chairperson Fuller, Emily Gallagher, Vincent Gangone, Solomon Green, Joel Gross, Sonia Iglesia, Moisha Indig, Bozina Kaminsky, Avram Katz, Ryan Coonan, Yoel Landau, Marie Lianza, Yoel Lowe, Trina McKeever, Toby Moskowitz, Martin Needleman, Simon Newstein, Rabbi Niederman, Karen Nieves, Mario Damer, Janice Peterson, Dana Racklin, Michael Schlesinger, Isaac Sofer, Robert Solano, James Stewart, Del Teague, Tommy Torres, Maria Vieira, Stephen Weidberg, Simon Weiser, Tessa Wilson. "18 members answering the call."
Thank you, Jerry. Can I have approval of the agenda, please? Karen, Julie, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. First item on the agenda is unenclosed cafe at 135 Studio North, ADR Incorporated, 135 North 5th Street. 135 North 5th Street. Is there anyone here to present on that item? Next item on the agenda is Carrie's Hospitality, 160 Franklin Street. Yes.
I have no idea how this works. Sorry. I have no idea. Sorry, I don't know what.
You're supposed to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Hi, my name is Paul Longo. I'm the owner and operator of Elder Green on the corner of Franklin Street and Kent Street, 160 Franklin. Sorry, is that loud enough? Oh, cool. Elder Green, 160 Franklin Street on the corner of Kent. We've been in operation since June. It was previously Mrs. Kim's. It was a licensed sidewalk cafe for the last 6 years, and we are applying for the same amount of seats in the same area under a new name.
Are there any questions? Tom, you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
The place that's there now has a sidewalk cafe already?
No, it was previously Mrs. Kim's, and it had a sidewalk cafe for the last 5 years since it was open. And since we took it over, this is us applying for a new permit for the same seating.
Wasn't my question that isn't there a sidewalk cafe there already for the old owner?
Yes.
Okay, so why'd you say no? All right.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions?
Show up on the 27th.
I think you need to tell them to show up where, when, and how.
Well, I'm sure he paid a lawyer who will tell him how to get there.
Maybe you don't know where to show up at.
Well, it's on it's Tuesday, November 27th at 6:30 at the Community Board office at 435 Graham Avenue. But did you bring a bunch of?
Yeah, they're up here. Sorry.
Just 51. There's 50 of them there. But make sure you bring your architectural plans with you.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anything else he needs? Are there any other questions?
Don't get me started.
Thank you so much.
We can have a card cake.
Next item on the agenda is NYC bike share.
Everybody hear me? On, there we go. Okay, thank you. My name is Brian Perret. I'm here to present the infill draft plan for Brooklyn Community Board 1. First, we'll go over the basics of bike share in New York City, our goals for infill, what infill is, and talk about draft plan. Then we'll talk a little bit about City Bike's L-train mitigation efforts. City Bike launched in May of 2013 with 330 stations and 6,000 bikes. In 2015, we expanded to our current size of 750 stations and 12,000 bikes. The system is designed at a network density of 28 stations per square mile, so that when you're in the service area, you're never more than a 3 to 5 minute walk from the station. City Bike has been a big success with over 66 million trips since launch. We have over 150,000 members that use the system and regularly hit over 70,000 trips per day, more than the Staten Island Ferry does. So it's clear that this is a mode of transportation New Yorkers want and use, and the city is looking to support that demand. Since the launch of City Bike and the growth of the cycling network in the city, there's been an increase of cyclists on the road. As you can see in this chart, there's safety in numbers. Number of cyclists shown on the right-hand side here. The number of cyclists shown in blue is increased, and in green we see the number of cyclists that have been killed decreased in the same time period. So we're really looking to create like a safe, visible network and make the roads safer for all users. Part of that is creating a safe cycling environment in both DOT and our operator promote safe cycling with helmet fittings, light and bell giveaways, and safety awareness classes. So tonight, we're here to talk about infill. That's our process to increase capacity within a given part of the service area. We're planning to add 1,250 bikes and 2,500 docks to the area on the map here, which is roughly from 59th Street to Canal in Manhattan, river to river, in the greater Williamsburg area of Brooklyn. And the focus is to add docks to existing stations and add new stations where there are identified network gaps. So, as with planning the system, we wanted to know where New Yorkers want their stations to grow. We created an online survey that allowed participants to select stations they preferred and had about 900 responses. We circulated flyers to elected officials, community boards, and promoted on social media as well. City Bike ambassadors also hand these out at large summer events like Summer Streets. So we use this feedback to help guide our selection process, analyzing past ridership and understanding where demand is and what works. Finally, operating within the sites of within our siting criteria restraints, we determined where we were going to place these stations. So to go over the Brooklyn Community Board 1 plan, there are 62 stations in this community board. 21 of those are going to grow. We're looking to install this winter to have everything ready to go by the time the L train shuts down in April. So to review the symbology on the draft plan map here, roadbed locations are square and orange. Sidewalk locations are triangle and blue. New stations will have black text. So I'll go station by station, north to south. I realize this map is small, this map is small. So this will be posted online tomorrow morning, and I'll call out our planned station growth here. Okay.
I believe he has 5
I'll get through it, I promise you.
Every station on that map.
We're not going through every
Start
station.
attacking him, he's gonna go on for hours.
So the
Let's let him do his presentation, Tom.
It's like dragging it out.
can I? We're gonna go here. The station on the east side of McGinnis Boulevard at Eagle Street in the roadbed will grow by 12 docks. Station on the north side of India at Manhattan Avenue will grow by 16 docks. That's in the roadbed. The station on the north side of Meserole at Manhattan Avenue on the sidewalk will grow by 1 dock. On the station on the south side of Nassau Avenue at Newell will grow by 11 docks. On the north side of Nassau Avenue, on the south side of Nassau at Russell Street on the sidewalk will grow by 30 docks. On the north side of Driggs, just south of McGolrick Park, on the north side on the sidewalk will grow by 3 docks. The station at Meeker and Graham, the north side on the sidewalk, will grow by 3 docks. And the north side of Richardson and North Henry Street, that's on the north side, and the roadbed will grow by 3 docks. Thank you. Okay, moving to the west side here. West side of Kent and North 7th, and the roadbed will grow by 6 docks. The south side of South 4th Street at Wythe will grow by 4 docks. That's in the roadbed. Moving to Metropolitan and Union, north side on the sidewalk will grow by 3 docks. Metropolitan and Frost and Meeker will grow by 6 docks. That's in the roadbed. The west side of Graham Avenue at Constellier will grow by 1 dock. That's in the roadbed. The station at Division and Hooper, down here at the center in Broadway, will grow by 34 docks. Moving to the west side of Graham at Powers will grow by 6 docks, and that's on the sidewalk. Station at Bushwick and Powers on the west side and the sidewalk will grow by 2 docks. North side of Scholes at Manhattan on the sidewalk will grow by 12 docks. The north side of Montrose at Bushwick in the roadbed will grow by 17 docks. The station at Broadway and Throop will grow by 4 docks. Station on the west side of Union at Wallabout will grow by 3 docks. The station at Humboldt and Verrett on the east side and the sidewalk will grow by 15 docks. And moving to our final station, this is a part of our L-train mitigation efforts. We're installing a temporary station on the south side of McKibben at Bogart near the Morgan Avenue L-train stop. It's to be determined how many docks that station's going to grow by.
Yes, Tom.
When we first got these city bike docks, whatever, we were given a list of locations in advance, and the community board was able to look at them and consider them and see where they were. This sounds like this is an edict. This is what we're going to do. These are the number of spaces of bikes we're giving you. I don't know how many parking spaces we're losing. There are some places that are in the middle of residential blocks which don't relate to anything under the sun. And I don't know that there's been any surveying of those residents where the bikes are sitting in front of them. We've tried to get at least one site relocated from the very beginning, and no one seems to care that we wanted that one relocated. And now they're just basically telling us we're adding 8 gazillion slots, too bad, so sad. And why are we even having a presentation? Why don't they just go do it and then have all the people call the community board office and complain? Because I don't think we're getting any input. This is what we're doing.
It's a draft plan. We're going to post this and allow for comments.
Yeah, but you want it done by April. You clearly want it done by April.
I think you're asking for them to
Can you
present-
raise your hand if you'd like to speak, please? Lisa?
Like Tom said, from the beginning, we were given locations. We did give you feedback as to the locations that you wanted to have these and what we felt was feasible or not feasible. You guys just went ahead and did whatever you wanted. You didn't even take our suggestions into consideration. Like we have was it Graham Avenue? We had asked for those bikes to be relocated. They were supposed to be down the block on Metro, correct? Due to a building that was under construction, you moved them, but yet the building is completed and you never relocated back to the original spot. It's the same thing by me. They're doing construction on Leonard Street. There was docks on Leonard Street. Now you moved the whole dock on Leonard and Jackson, where I live, and it took up about 7 or 8 parking spots.
I'm not sure I understand.
So it took, spots away from those of us who need our cars, and with no consideration. We try to call, we get no feedback, and it is what it is. So even for maybe not that location, but these other locations, like Tom said, that are on residential side streets, and you're increasing them, it's really not fair to the community who does have cars, or, is paying a lot of money and doesn't want to have these bikes in front of
Please
their
ask
house.
your question, okay? Because other people got a lot of
Go
questions.
ahead.
You didn't even finish the presentation.
Oh, no, in that, we did get through all of the, we did not. You wanted to talk about that? They cut them off. Oh, we were just.
No, you're not out of time. People just got questions and they can't wait to get to the actual question.
You want to get out of here by 9 o'clock, I'm trying to help you.
I understand that, Tom, but he want to finish his presentation, then you ask questions after he finished the presentation, okay? Toba, do you have something burning that you need to ask? Okay.
So in addition to the L train station that I mentioned by Morgan Avenue, I want to talk a little bit about our L train efforts in Brooklyn, Brooklyn and Manhattan as well. We're adding 10 new high-capacity valet services. 4 of those will be located here in Brooklyn. Additionally, the pedal assist East River shuttle will be operating. We're going to add a fleet of 1,000 pedal assist bikes that will be available for pickup at 2 valet stations in Brooklyn and for drop-off in Manhattan, vice versa as well. Just to go over the valet stations, we'll be installing those at North 6th and Bedford Avenue, Kent and North 7th, South 5th Place and 4th Street, and Bushwick Avenue and Powers. And the 2 there, Bushwick and Powers and North 6th and Bedford, will be where the pedal assist shuttle bikes will be available. Just to show you on the map where those are. And that's all I have.
Does anybody have any other questions? Karen?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the So, we have asked in the past about having data on underutilized dock stations and maybe placing the ones, removing those and placing ones in other areas, such as like by Cooper Park for one, which the residents over there has been asking, and there's enough room, and it's also by Cooper Park houses. And I'm glad to see Bogart and Morgan on the L stop, but do you have data explaining regarding the underutilized locations? And also, do you have data on actually how many parking spaces will be removed due to the expansion?
So to answer your second question, we're adding about 200 docks in total to Brooklyn CB1, and there's total parking loss of 7 spaces across the whole board. 7. 7. 0, 7. And if you have any particular questions about particular spaces, we can take a look. Regarding your first question about the underutilized stations, well, we took a look at ridership data and incorporated that into our decision making as far as like where to expand stations. And really, with the L train shutdown coming, we don't feel like there's going to be any underutilized city bike stations in Brooklyn CB1. Like any added capacity will help deal with this transportation crisis.
And then what about the suggested locations such as Cooper Park?
I'll have to take a look at that location a little closer. The temporary station near the Morgan Avenue stop is so far what we've considered.
Chesler?
Yes, talk about how the finances of the system, essentially how much is privately funded, how much is publicly funded, is it in the black? And if it, is the financial success of it partially prompting the expansion that you're proposing?
None of City Bike is publicly funded. It's privately funded by Motivate. There are no city funds that operate it.
Dana?
I was just curious about the, kind of have heard it, the valet stations and also the city bikes and their locations. They're always put, I get like why you put them in certain places, but we know that traditionally in CB1 they're around schools. And if somebody doesn't dock it correctly, and let's say a kid notices and gets on it, that kid is then arrested for felony grand larceny. So we're like, kids' behavior is kind of leading to felony arrests. And so how are we managing that relationship with City Bike as a community? And I get we need to ride them, maybe we need to take responsibility making sure they get docked correctly, but to me that's an issue and that's happening here in CB1 and the 9.4 and the 9.0. And are you guys aware of that? And what does City Bike have to say about all these kids kind of getting swept up in the system for juvenile behavior? Yeah, and that's a good question. Just to introduce myself, I'm Jennifer Santanez. I work with the Department of Transportation, but we also have Julie Wood here from Motivate as well. So she can speak to your question.
Hey, how are you? Julie Wood from Motivate. We operate City Bike as well as bike share systems around the country. It's a really good question. So I'm proud that we've done a lot of work actually to reduce the rate of missed dockings, which is the biggest problem that causes city bikes to go missing. So we have added new sounds and lights, so made the sound louder, and we've also added push notifications so that when you don't dock correctly, you get a notification right away so you can fix it. We're also
The young people getting felony charges.
That's exactly the issue that we've been talking with NYPD about, and we're very aware of as well. I think they've assured us that they are, we as a company are not pressing charges for stolen city bikes, and they've assured us that those charges are not something that is a priority for them at all.
The gentleman in the back?
Yes. My name is Philip Leff. I'm the volunteer chair of Transportation Alternatives North Brooklyn. Many of our activists who live east of Bushwick Avenue have been asking for months now, when is the system expanding? Why do people east of Bushwick Avenue not have access to this affordable, environmentally sustainable form of transportation? And is this station expansion to the Morgan L stop the only expansion east of Bushwick for the L shutdown?
We're hopefully going to be going to Community Board 4 in December to discuss a little bit more about plans to go into Bushwick.
And there's lots of CG1 that's east of Bushwick Avenue.
Yeah.
Too, so,
Right now, the only station we've identified for Bushwick area is the one that we mentioned here as the temporary station around Morgan Avenue. We'll be discussing some more at CB4 in hopefully December.
Yes, Shane.
System, how does that work?
Right, so.
Yeah, it's a good question. So valet stations are city bike stations that are busy, and in order to increase the capacity of that station without actually adding docks, what we do is we assign there who are able to, when the station fills up, they can take bikes out of the docks and sort of stack them up in a big corral. So we can go from maybe a station that has 50 docks can hold something like 200, 300 bikes. So we do this during rush hour primarily, and it's an easy way to avoid the problems of either not having a place to dock or not having a bike. So we also do this in the evening rush when people are looking for bikes, and we can do the same thing.
There was a gentleman in the aisle that had his hand up before. Did you have your hand up before?
No.
Are there any others? Yes.
So for the electric assist bikes,
I just heard that we're only getting them in 2 or 3 stations. Is that true, or are they going to be distributed throughout the entire system? Because those are very valuable for getting over the Williamsburg Bridge. They're very useful.
So I think right now that the plan is to, hi Mike, is to have them available at the 2 stations that we mentioned, or the 2 in Brooklyn and 2 in Manhattan. So it'll serve as kind of just a direct connection over the bridge from one of those 4 stations.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is New York Parks and Recreation. Mary.
Okay, good evening. My name is Eric Mattis. I'm here from the Capital Projects Design Division at New York City Parks. So we're here to discuss 50 Kent, Bushwick Inlet Park. Just letting everybody know, we actually presented this to the Parks Committee on November 1st, at which time the committee made several recommendations, which we took into account in this revised presentation that we're going to show you. So some of their comments were flood resiliency in regard to tree selection and plant species selection. More colorful plantings be used and bloom seasonally. Variance or change in the different types of paving materials, specifically looking into the use of permeable pavements. Different seating styles, interesting, engaging design of the water spray play area, and inclusion of more naturalistic elements such as boulders. So this project has $7.7 million in mayoral funding, and it's approximately 2 acres. Some of the goals are to provide a large passive space with integrated landforms that allow for views, create the opportunity for flexible space, provide an accessible and welcoming park entrance, provide densely planted trees for shade, integrate native plantings throughout the park, and also include green infrastructure, and ensure that the final design, most importantly, works seamlessly with the future phases of the park. So here you can see where it's located, and that red line is the indication. It's sort of sandwiched between city storage and Bayside parcels, which I'll show you. It's clearly in the floodplain, so we are taking into account flood resiliency and inundation. It sits essentially within both the commercial and industrial uses currently. And again, the neighborhood context here, within a 5-minute walk, you have Bushwick Inlet Park, and then within a 10-minute walk, you have McCarran Park. So here you can see, based on the concept from the 2009 Greenpoint Williamsburg Master Plan, you can see that essentially the area was designated as passive space with naturalized park paths going through it. So here's what I'd mentioned before. The site is essentially sandwiched between city storage and Bayside, and ultimately everything you see on the screen is considered Bushwick Inlet Park when it's fully built out. So just some existing conditions photos. So the site was remediated by National Grid, so it was capped with clean fill and planted with grass seed. So now we're using it essentially as a pop-up park in the interim. So it's just a very flat site, as you can see. So when we met with the community on June 4th, the basic crux of that showed us that everybody primarily wanted to see a passive park facility. So that's what you see in green in that pie chart. Looking at the existing site, again, it's very flat. It's just lawn space now surrounded by streets, and it's essentially accessible off of Kent Avenue. Again, taking a look back at the master plan and its context with the future build out for all of Bushwick Inlet Park. So we took that into account in how we worked out the schematic design. So here you can see we felt very strongly that views out to the city needed to be maintained as part of this build out. And here's the schematic design. So you can see something that the was very concerned about is having these naturalistic paths, very curvilinear path system. So you can see there's a very large green elevated lawn space. We'll show you some sections of what that looks like. But essentially it's a green lawn space with an overlook at the very top. When you enter the site off of Kent Avenue, it's entirely an open plaza with planted areas, with seating, with tables. You can walk up via stairs to get up to that overlook, or you can have an ADA compliant path that takes you up to that overlook as well. Then towards the back or rear of the site, we have what we consider a family gathering area, which will have game tables, a spray play area, and a forest grove, and a series of paths that will take you through that forest. The space around that family area, I'll point it out, all throughout here is going to be permeable pavers, and the rest of the pavement for the paths, for the really larger, wider paths into the site off of Kent Avenue, bringing you in, will be asphalt hexagonal pavers. I think I've caught everything. Just to also wanted to make sure that everybody understood we took into account the future connections once the full Bushwick Inlet Park is built out. We provided path connections both here and here. So these will be connections, and we'll have gated access in those two locations as well. So just looking at the grading plan, again, the overlook is up here. So this is essentially a high point by about 10 feet. And then it drops down, so you have dramatic views from here that look out to the city. And here you can see that section again that clearly shows the high point over here, which is the overlook, and this is the entry plaza here, and that everything slopes down towards the water. Just another section through the park showing you the forest grove. So this would be a view, it's a perspective view out. So you're at the top of the overlook looking out towards the water's edge and the forest grove in the background. And here is a perspective of the water play area. So on November 1st, several concerns were raised about making the water play area a little bit more innovative and fun. So we've added colored concrete in these swirling forms, as well as a vertical element. So in addition to the ground sprays and the boulders surrounding it to add that naturalized effect, we also have a vertical element that'll be in that space as well. So looking at the fencing diagram, essentially there'll be a 4-foot fence around the perimeter along North 12th, North 11th Street, 4-foot fence, and at the vacant lot at the back will be an 8-foot fence, and then the entire space will be open along Kent Avenue, no fencing. So looking at the seating, again, there was concerns raised about the types of seating. Primarily, we're going to have our 1960 World's Fair bench, which is sort of standard for us with the recycled plastic lumber slats. We actually are introducing steel lounge chairs, which you'll see. So in response to what the Parks Committee felt, they'd like to see different types of seating. We've added that, and we've added a little bit of a different type of cafe seating, and we've added more landscape boulders as seating as well. So here you can just see some of those site elements. Again, the 64 World's Fair bench, and then the type of lounge seating, which is a steel lounge chair, and also those cafe chairs. And they'll be a colorful, they'll be colorful and really attract interest into the park. And again, here are the paving materials. Again, the permeable pavers, the use of granite pavers, and also the landscape boulders for seating. So we heard the concerns, again, about resiliency, and we looked at the plant material. So we have a variety of plant materials to be used at the entrance plaza, as well as the lawn and vegetative slope. It's really a mixture of trees, both shade trees, ornamental trees, shrubs, and some ground covers and perennials, all of which are very hardy and will really sustain some sort of an inundation should that occur in the future. So looking at the forest grove, again, these same materials, the use of shade trees and perennials and some grasses. The habitat for the green infrastructure. So here again, this will be plant material that can take that inundation and water to collect stormwater runoff. And so we heard the community's desire for seasonal interest, so that here you can see our consultants did a wonderful job here at showing you essentially the colors for each of these spaces. So at the top, that's the entry plaza, and you're seeing from left to right, it's the seasonal progression. So we're starting in January and going out to December. You can see the seasonal interest for the entrance plaza, the lawn and vegetative slope, the habitat green infrastructure, and the forested areas. So there's color during all the seasons. And I think that was our last slide, if anybody has any questions.
Are there any questions? Yes.
I feel that one point, one park, one resource that New York City has is the Metropolitan Pool that has not been mentioned at all. And that pool is really not being utilized enough. We have a women's swim hour session through the week. We had that for over 30 years. We were torn away. They threw us out from 1 minute to the next because somebody may think that we might be, how do you say that, not obeying the law. And then we were told that it was.
Excuse me, you're out of order. This is about a park, not a pool. This is not the type of presentation for that. Are there any other questions?
Well,
Trina? You're out of order, Miss Trina.
This is really great, the way you responded to what went on in the committee meeting, and the changes are really good. One of the things, though, that the committee, I think, that was part of the committee recommendation was the edges to the pathway. I know that you've got the permeable pavers, but there was kind of a hard edge to the paths. I'm wondering whether that's been looked at.
So some of the edges will have like a granite cobble edge to some of the areas to make them a little bit more naturalized. I'm not sure if that's specifically what you're asking about, though.
There had been kind of a
the curb at the end of at the western side of the lawn area.
In terms of it being,
well, the sides of the pathways have.
So all the sides of the pathways have courses of granite cobble, like maybe 3 or 4 courses of granite cobble on each side of the pathway. And in addition to that, there's also boulders laying out on not all of the edges, but a lot of the edges.
so you can see this is the edging we're talking about. See that center picture at the bottom? That's more of like a granite cobble edge.
Yes, I'd just like to echo what Trina's comment about really, listening to the feedback from, from the committee and from the community that attended the meeting. But I guess as you go into finishing the design and building it out, that just to keep in mind that the community has been advocating for a while for having a world-class park created, just in the line of other parks up and down the waterfront in Queens and in like Brooklyn Bridge Park. That this community's been waiting. It's 15 years and counting for the rest of this park. So I feel like we deserve, really unique, world-class experience. And there's an industrial and historical element that goes way back. So I just really urge the Parks Department and Stantec to really keep that in mind as you move forward.
Okay.
Julie?
I'm just looking at your little pictures and stuff. What other activities do you have for the youth to participate in your sprinkler system? When you put it together, is it going to be wheelchair accessible for wheelchair folks?
Yes.
And what I'm saying is, what other activities for the young people playing besides that? And children that are on the spectrum of autism, what type of activity would they have in this park?
So this first part of this Bushwick Inlet Park, it's only a part of it. So essentially, outside of this, as part of the master plan, there was a specific area that was designated to be a playground. So that will happen in the future. So right now, in this particular space that I showed you, that I introduced as like a family gathering area, there would be game tables, there would be benches, there's really nature paths through the forest grove, and then this spray shower is really intended for the children. It is ADA accessible, so there'll be jets that come up out of the ground, in addition to vertical elements that children in a wheelchair technically could go through and go adjacent to as well. It'll all be flush.
Dal?
So I'm not sure the specifics about dogs, like if they're off, about being off leash or on leash for this particular park facility.
Right now with the pop-up park, we have no pets in that park, just because of the lawn and the maintainability of dogs on the lawn. This park, when it's open, will allow pets. There won't be any off-leash hours because there is a dog run nearby.
Okay, I would, well, I am a dog owner, but I also think, there are a lot of people who are afraid of dogs, so I was hoping that it would have to be at least on the leash.
It would, yeah, so it's on the leash.
That's my personal opinion, I'm sure there are people who don't agree.
The gentleman in the back?
What's the projected timeline for the build-out of public access?
So essentially, we usually tell people it's a year for everything. So it's a year in design, a year in procurement, which is essentially getting a contractor on board, and then a park like this would ordinarily take about a year to construct. So we're looking about 3-year process altogether to the build-out of this 50 Kent parcel.
Chester?
What is the surface of this water area made out of?
It's concrete.
Are there any other questions? Gentleman in the back?
Thank you. I just wondered, I'm new to this process, but I just wondered, most of the parks on the waterfront are sort of passive recreation with a soccer field in it. And I'm just wondering if you've given any thought in this or in the full Bushwick Park for something that's just wild.
In terms of planted areas that are just wild, it's, again, as the future parcels come online, you can certainly, come to those meetings. We'll have a community input meeting, and that's something that we could talk about.
I just wanted to ask about the benches. So you said there were those lawn chairs, which I believe are stainless steel or?
They're steel or powder-coated steel.
Powder-coated steel. What about the benches? Are they wooden or are they plastic?
Those are recycled plastic lumber because we're working within the frame of sustainability, so we don't use tropical hardwoods for our bench slats, which used to be customary for us to use before.
Gentleman in the back?
I just want to say, I really like what you have here. It seems like a nice traditional design that accommodates a lot of uses. Longer term, is there a plan to connect all of these new waterfront spaces? Like, will I ever be able to go jogging from like the Newtown Creek water, shore, like all the way down through Bushwick Inlet Park, East River State Park, all those new parks around North 6th Street, that kind of thing?
I guess we can only speak for Greenpoint Williamsburg neighborhood, but yes, essentially that's the big idea. So that's why I put this slide up. So that everything is supposed to connect. And what I had mentioned before is we're taking that into account. This was a little bit of a tall order for our design consultants to work on about thinking about how this gets built out in the future. We don't know specifically when all those others will come online. But yes, we do have a path system that allows for connections to the future path that will make all those other connections.
Greenpoint Landing all
Correct.
the way down to the bridge.
Correct.
That's great news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Karen?
Children's sprinkler area. I just actually have a concern because since it's all concrete, and then, in the picture it's showing like boulders, and I'm just thinking, God forbid, if a child would slip or fall. Is there any other type of materials instead of concrete that you could use for this section? And also, is there any safety measures as far as the boulders?
So we've successfully installed these in other parks throughout Brooklyn. And we feel if the boulders are set apart far enough, as well as, and again, the key to the success and the safety of children in these types of environments is to make sure that, yes, although they may fall, you want to make sure that there's good skid resistance so that they don't slip. So it used to be that sometimes we'd use like a color seal coat system, a painted system, but even if we added sand to that, it still really didn't give us good skid proofness, if putting it mildly. So we feel we've had great success with the concrete, and then the concrete works better seasonally when the spray shower is not in use as well, just in terms of being able to handle the different seasons, in terms of it being a multi-use space so that children could actually do something else in that space during the fall and winter months. You know, riding tricycles, having something like that as a paved area for them to circulate through.
Chancellor.
Yeah, regarding on the, potential for, sense of, are there actually any gardens in the park? I was looking at what you call the green habitat area.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the potential just to be, say, like a pollinator garden?
Sure. Yes, that exists essentially. Let me just go back to the schematic. So when you enter the park, we have the areas listed as green infrastructure. I don't know if you can see it on the plans, but essentially these locations here, and then there's also green infrastructure in the back and along the sides. So the idea there would be to have perennials that would provide color. And if you're asking whether or not a community group could be formed that would be able to, again, introduce something else, that's definitely something that we could work with our Partnership for Parks folks on, working with a community group to do that. But essentially the big idea would be, again, with that seasonal interest slide that we showed before, is really showing that there'll be seasonal interest year-round.
Can you explain the procedure? So you're here tonight, and the board, if the board approves the design, you then go to the design commission, and then it's a done deal. The design commission.
Correct. So we're going for preliminary approval at the Public Design Commission. After that point, then we go right into contract development. So then we.
Does the design commission ever kick back the design? Will they have questions, and will they?
Yes, they've often given us comments. So we can make design modifications based on their concerns. And
you go back to them until you get to the point where your approval, and then it
Correct.
goes into procurement.
Are there any other questions? The lady over here.
I'm wondering, is there a maintenance plan or any kind of projection for the staffing needs for this park and for the eventual?
I'm going to have to defer to Mary for that question. But in terms of maintenance, I know that the Greenpoint, Williamsburg area has great needs as it continually develops. So yes, there'd be M&O forces assigned to this particular park. How many at this time, we don't know. But again, Mary does a wonderful job as a North Brooklyn administrator, so I'm sure we'll have gardening staff and other staff available to maintain the site.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more about resiliency in terms of potential flooding, if there's a heavy rain event or a hurricane? How does this park help buffer the neighborhood surrounding?
Sure. So essentially, there's an elevation that we're trying to meet, and Gentry, you can just remind me what that is. It's
elevation 12.
So elevation 12, we're essentially, berming the site, and we're raising it right up against the street. So essentially, that's how we're trying to take that into account. But just remember, because this park is going to essentially go all the way past towards the waterfront. So future phases will also have to take that into account. So we're doing what we can. We're closer to the street, further away from the water, but we've taken it into account in the plant material selection and a lot of the materials we're using, the types of pavements we're using, what else? And also actually some of the bench, we've had great success with certain benches in terms of, even if they are inundated, so that the finishes on the benches don't get corroded. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. It's a little bit unique in the fact that this is just the first parcel. So we'll have to think about that moving forward as well, so the parcels that are closer to the water as well. But here we are elevating it, and we have the overlook naturally, and we're doing as much as we can. It's costly to naturally to change the grades a substantial amount along the waterfront.
Gentleman in the back.
Yeah, I was at the meeting last time with the Bushwick Park, and definitely the community, was asking about things that I can't clearly see here, but definitely there was a general desire of making of this space as more natural as possible. So naturalized was one of the words used. And definitely, I personally have made a comment about benches, because I keep seeing benches are nicely designed all over at Hunter's Point and many other parks. And I believe once again, we see a bench that was designed in 1964. I mean, we have an opportunity to design a world-class park in 2018, and we're only able to respond to a 1964 bench.
Sir, do you have a question? I understand you said you signed up. You signed up to speak on this item.
The question is, the community has asked for a new design of the bench, but I still see that the same bench has been proposed as a 1964 bench. Why?
So it's intentional because we want to make sure that the aesthetics with all of these various parks that are getting built along the Greenpoint Williamsburg waterfront have some consistency. So we've added some additional types of bench options here. We've added the steel lounge chairs, as I stated before, as long as additional boulder seating. So that's how we've sort of expanded upon it.
My question was, because we have here a master plan, so we talk about consistency. My question again is, we should encourage, so Park Department should encourage both the developer for the belt is going to become our park and this park. So by doing this, we actually going against the actual master plan, which had established standards that didn't contemplate about the 1964.
Sir, that is not a question.
Now the question is why? We're not creating consistency.
I mean, if we are creating consistency, that's the bench we're using throughout the waterfront now currently.
Dr. Barrett Challenge.
Sorry, sir, I didn't understand. Essentially, it would close at dusk. That's how it works for parks. And I forget the specific hours throughout the year, but dusk.
The gentleman in the back.
For like the sprinkler system and for the permeable pavers, 'cause I know that they've broken in other places and it's very hard for operations to replace those on short notice. So is there something written into the contract for when it's developed that if it breaks within a year, or within 2 years, within 3 years, will it be introduced?
Associated with their equipment. So
Tesla.
Yes, it's a big improvement from the committee, but I have to say the water spray area, it's different, but I feel like it still kind of falls short. I would just say either, if you're going to go naturalistic, go like Guns and Blazes naturalistic, and if not, maybe have nothing there. Like in Battery City, in the box fountain, and in Domino, they just have a flat surface, and people are kids have a really fun time, So it just looks kind of just a variation of what we saw at the committee meeting.
Trina.
Is there a chance to go, does the committee have to, or does the board have to reject it in order to get it worked into a redesign, or can it be understood
I would
that that's
certainly
not
hope not. We're still developing it, and I know that Stantec is here. We're taking your comments seriously, and we'll do what we can. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, but I'm just concerned about those boulders in the water area. I mean, I'm just envisioning some conforming sections on the boulders. And I go to Domino a lot, and it's just, the water's just a flat area, as Steve said. I just don't know how safe it is. I'm in here, but I'm a mother. I'm not a kid. I'm seeing those kids, falling and smacking their face on.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Thank you so much. We have one speaker on this item. Sir, would you still like to speak?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, this is not a question, but definitely I want to bring to your attention what I was trying to say before, that the community has been asking for a naturalized park, and still this is really not that naturalized. And again, it seems absurd in 2018 that the city and parks, we have opportunity to design different type of benches, and we have to still see a bench was designed in 1964. I want to invite you definitely not to vote for this design. I believe this is still needs to be an open conversation with the community, and there are elements and design standards that need to be considered profoundly, because I believe there are far more valuable alternatives to give this community a natural environment that the community really deserves. You know, we are surrounded by development, and that's why we've been advocating for natural space and naturalized type of parks. Hunter Point is a very good example, and many elements at the Brooklyn Bridge Park are very good example, where benches are different, where other design elements and other design standards are definitely different. I believe we have an opportunity for this park, but also for all the waterfront plan. And somebody was asking about the rest of the front yard of the development, of which, yes, one day they will become the belt, and the network of that front yard will be our park. And all these elements, all the things we've been talking about, will bind together. And if we not keeping attention today, we are missing this great opportunity of having a Greenpoint, Williamsburg waterfront properly designed.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Richard Lobel. I'm from the law firm of Sheldon Lobel. I'm joined tonight by my colleague Fan Baton, as well as Nick Liberis, who's the project architect, and Jeff Rubin from Philip and Beeben Associates, which is the environmental consultant. So the property that we are here for is 103 North 13th Street, and we're here for a special permit, which would allow for the use of the required industrial uses, as well as incentive business uses, and as of right commercial uses. I got this. So you can see the property highlighted in the dotted area on the block bounded by Wythe, North 13th and North 14th. And so the special permit, as this community board is likely well aware, was originally created in 2016. And since that time, there have been 2 applications that have come before the community board. Both of those were eventually approved. So the special permit itself is not one which considers the overall bulk of the site. As the community board is also likely aware, the underlying zoning district is the M12 district, which would permit a 4.8 FAR for the entirety of the site. The challenge, of course, is that FAR permits 2 FAR for commercial uses and 2.8 for community facility uses, allowing for 4.8 building with really what would amount to a lot of doctor's offices. So the special permit provided that the applicant complies with certain requirements regarding the split of the uses, the quality of the space, as well as the bulk of the building, may apply for the special permit and allow for a change in uses. So that's really what's taking place here. As you probably see to the southwest of the site is 25 Kent, which was the initial application, which was approved by the community board with conditions. So the special permit here, the application really is threefold. The first is for an expansion of the industrial business incentive area to include the site. Again, as the community board may be aware, when this was initially approved in 2016, the City Planning Commission included all or portions of 12 blocks within the M12 area to allow for a wider distribution of the special permit. At that time, the special permit area, the IBIA, was reduced solely to encompass the block of 25 Kent. So now for special permits which seek to go through, which would be this special permit, we are required to ask for a text amendment and map amendment to enlarge the IBIA to include that site. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be pursuant to 7496, which is the special permit itself. We would seek to allow for this mix of uses, which would include, in this case, 4.8 FAR, of which 0.8 FAR would be for required industrial uses. So as Nick can point out, as we get to the building plans and the context, here that would involve 25,000 square feet of permitted uses, which would entail roughly 10,000 square feet of retail use on the ground floor and 15,000 square feet of office use above. This would also entail 10,000 square feet of required industrial uses, and those are the uses where the special permit seeks high quality, contiguous, horizontally contiguous industrial space to allow for these type of jobs where people in Williamsburg and Greenpoint in the larger area will be able to walk to these buildings. And the additional 25,000 square feet would be allotted to permitted uses, and here that would be use group 6 office space on the floors above. So this is really kind of going to the heart of the special permit, which would allow for this high quality Class A office as well as contiguous industrial space, which is really like a goal of generating these new buildings built for decades. So the permit allows for the applicant to request for waivers in parking and loading berths. So we would be asking for parking waiver here, although the as of right uses of the building and as of right plans would permit a 4.8 FAR, they would require 130 some odd spaces. We're asking for a waiver of spaces to allow for the use of this space for industrial use and accessory commercial use. They would also allow for a minor waiver of accessory loading berths. There would be a loading berth. There would be required to be 3 loading berths in the building. As of right, we would be seeking 1 loading berth. This would be contiguous with a dedicated freight elevator and as well as a manufacturing and industrial corridor within the building. So we feel that the movement of products and goods would be really well served by this proposed building. That's the essence of the legal aspect of the application. I would just basically ask Nick to just run through the actual plans so he can demonstrate how the proposed building satisfies the rather stringent bulk requirements of the special permit. Nick?
Thank you for having us. So the first thing to note is that as of right, we can actually build something higher. So what this does is it allows us to have something which is lower, and we can keep the contextual use in this area. So when we got this project, we saw that this was something which could have a very positive impact on this entire area, pursuant to what Ms. Moskowitz has done over at 25 Kent. So we were very heedful of this. We were trying to respect this, and we went with a palette of materials that, while they're not slavishly adherent, to the local context, we're still trying to use stuff that you would find that have some sort of sense of this place memory that you find over here. So there's brick. We have some burnished metal. At the top, you can see we have a dormer, which is emphasized for the proportion and also because of the views. 25 Kent has this big, beautiful plaza that we are, that we're eager to give the occupants of this building visual access to. And as you can see over here, the base over here, we have a strong retail base, very, very open. And up on the second floor, we have the light manufacturing use, which is showcased. City planning has been very adamant about having this placed at the second or third floor, such that the sense of this use of this typical use, that's found in this area is still preserved. And we would like to celebrate that. We have a slight differentiation of this glass at the second floor. And then you can see over to the right side of the image, you have a perforated brick screen, which also has brick in relief. And what you end up doing is you end up massing the entry to the office and to the light manufacturing over to the right side of the image. And what we're also trying to do is to kind of link these two uses. So we'd be very happy if there was some sort of synergy between the light manufacturing use and this first floor retail use, and it's been set up as such so that in the event that they're able to find a tenant that could take use of both, it's set up for them, and there won't have to be changes. So the special permit also requires you to have a fully featured loading facility. So we have a big loading facility. We have a large freight elevator, and all the elevators over here on the right side of the image you can see at the top where the bulkheads get expressed. And then up above in this lighter portion for the last 3 floors in that 4th floor penthouse, you have the commercial offices. So this is a view looking down towards Bushwick Inlet Park, the future Bushwick Inlet Park. You can see the side of the building. We're hoping Colossal will come and do something. Although part of the issue with that is that the special permit text defaults you into a much more restrictive commercial zoning in terms of signage. So maybe that's something that you guys want to take up in the future with DCP, because the way that it's set up right now, you'll be seeing less and less of that nice painted signage. So you can see, that it's not very bulky. I mean, we have the elevators up here, which top out at about 110 feet. The permitted height for this with the special permit is 110 feet. So the zoning allows you to actually go higher than that because you could go through that maximum height with those bulkheads, and we do not. So we're about 15 feet lower than what you're allowed to do. So this is the first floor. You can see we have the retail space. We have the 2 cores on either side of the 2 stair cores. We have the loading facility over here. There's the small office lobby over here with these 2 elevators. This is the cellar, which is also most probably going to be used as retail storage. The second floor, the light manufacturing floor, and then you have a typical office floor. And the next few floors are typical. The split that you see here is basically, there's a zoning distinction between what you can build as of right and what they term the bonus floor area. So we have to demonstrate them this way, but it's basically going to be one contiguous use. Sorry, this is the penthouse up here. Sections of the building. You can see we have a setback in the rear too, which is at the light manufacturing floor. So this is intended to be used in concert with that second floor use. Again, the elevation. This is something that we had to submit to demonstrate compliance with transparency requirements for the zoning text. You can see we're very open on these 2 floors. And this is the building in the context in situ over here. So this is something that we feel very, very strongly about this, just because we think that as the city grows and as these urban centers become more and more polycentric, it's imperative that you have a mix of all these uses and you have a mix of all these commercial types of uses. And it's I think there's a good analog if you look in nature. There's a lot of it's never like purely homogeneous. So I think this seems like an excellent way to kind of mix these uses towards like promoting a more sustainable economic setup for this area. And I believe this goes back to either Jeff or Rich. Thank you.
So I think, subject to the board's request, I think we'd be happy to take any questions.
What are, I guess, your optimal plans for the roof? Are you able to do retail, like do a bar, restaurant, or a green roof? I know there's an initiative with a couple council members, or 3 of them, to require green roofs on new developments? Is that maybe something to consider? And also,
Well, we're always seeking to put plantings up there, and we always have a thickened roof also. So it's right now it's not a green roof per se, but it's been set up for water detention. There are no plans as of yet. It's very much market driven, but it could be used that way. That's definitely possible.
Gentleman in the back has hands.
Yeah, I actually work on North 14th. I didn't realize you guys would be doing this today. So it's my understanding you're trying to go higher than, that's what this is about, is trying to go higher?
It's not going higher. It's just a slightly different massing and different uses. So whereas you would be beholden to the zoning text, which says that you have to do like doctors' offices or certain types of manufacturing uses. This lets you do that plus some extra commercial floor area if you give 0.8 of the site to light manufacturing.
I'd be very interested in hearing where this goes because actually we do have a garden on North 14th Street there, and our the beekeeper who's in there, she's actually had to look for another place to move her bees because she's worried about the construction that's about to happen from the building. So I appreciate maybe knowing more about this as you go forward.
Yeah, sure. And there's also spaces that have just come on south of there that maybe there's other people building over there soon, and maybe you could I could hook you up with them, and they might have someplace south of there where she could move temporarily.
Yeah.
Parking reduction, we're seeking to waive all of it. There's a lot of parking that's in this area now coming online. Ms. Moskowitz's 25 Kent has about, I think, 300-400 spots. Mhm.
The last project, they were seeking to reduce the parking, but they were willing to have some parking spaces, and the board voted to require even more than what they wanted to give us, so you might want to think about that.
Wow, were you done, Bill?
I'm done, yeah, thanks.
We had Toby's buildings, you've already referred to it as Toby. I was gonna call her 25 Kent, but you've referred to her as Toby.
No disrespect intended, you don't
no.
have to call me Ms. Moskowitz.
Miss Moskowitz, the cookie lady. We dragged her through the mud to get her building and wanted her to do a lot of things. We wanted her to meet with Evergreen and the industrial business zone people. We wanted to know what 32P and J said about who you're gonna hire once you build that building. Will they be union cleaners and office people, or are you just gonna, whatever? Is it union construction or not? Because we're gonna hear about it. You're talking about light manufacturing. I think we went through a list of what the light manufacturing is that's gonna be required. I don't think we want a brewery in there that has a ancillary use of an office upstairs for beer testing. I don't think that's what we're looking for. What retail space do you need? Nobody's buying anything in stores anymore, so what is that ground floor retail gonna be? A restaurant, a bar? And then Steve raises the horrible thing of a bar and restaurant on the roof. We don't want any more bars and restaurants on the roof overlooking our park. So what's, is that gonna be office space up there, or is this gonna be a building with a bar on the bottom and a bar on the top and people drinking in between?
That sounds fun. So I just
And no
wanted to
parking,
briefly
because they
address
can't drive,
the-
they're so drunk.
I just want to briefly address and then maybe let Nick talk. But we did have a great meeting with Leah and Stephen at Evergreen. Showed them the building, and there's a feeling as far as as from what I understand, that the industrial sector is interested in the special permit, obviously advocates for it, but that there's a difficulty as far as bringing space online because as far as Leah and Stephen were discussing, there's current demand that can't be met. And so one of the reasons I think that we had a very good meeting with them, and I'm glad that you raised it, is because this building is far smaller than the prior proposals that have been before the community. So those have ranged from, I believe, upwards of 380,000 square feet for 25 Kent to upwards of 170,000 square feet for Franklin. So this is a much smaller building at 59,000 square feet. And as such, the proposed development would probably be at such a pace as would be able to bring industrial space online more quickly. So we have met with Evergreen, had a really nice discussion with them. They were, very, obviously they can draw their own opinions and would be able to talk to the board to that, but, you know, I just wanted you to know that we did check in.
Around the area, and there is no parking spaces.
I guess to answer the fun question about parking. You know, as we've discussed, zoning would require 139 spaces. The parking waiver here is asking for no parking to be provided. And I think your question is about demand. It's a relatively small site, 12,500 square feet, right? 125 feet. So a frontage, it's a much smaller site than some of the other ones. So from that point of view, providing parking is more challenging. But in terms of the demand, what you're talking about is for the EAS, we did have to identify the parking demand, and it's relatively small here. It's going to peak around 28 spaces in the middle of the day. Remember, we're talking about a entirely non-residential building. The parking would be from the, you know, we're in a very transit, and as we heard earlier, a very city bike accessible site. Based on other buildings in the area, based on studies, based on census data, most people working in this building will take transit, will bike, will walk to work. We know some will drive, and we know that a few visitors to the retail could drive as well and park on the streets, but it's a relatively small number. Now, from a seeker EAS point of view, 28 spaces is not an impact. I can't say to you that 28 spaces is not an impact if you don't believe that, but from an EAS perspective and from a sort of city planning, zoning perspective, it's a relatively small number.
This is right next to White Avenue. We all know what a disaster White Avenue is for parking and traffic. So to say that there's not a parking need, it's like crazy talk. So I think we really need to look at the parking thing when you have your committee meeting, because
Yes, I find it interesting that, we've gone from, you know, asking for a reduction in parking and haggling over, well, will this be enough, will that be enough, and now it's, now the request is no parking, from 138 to 0, 130 something to 0.
And we're happy to engage in that conversation and kind of have Jeff demonstrate a little bit further some of the studies that he did. I know that in the prior applications, the waivers amounted to, in the case of Franklin, 360 spaces, and in the case of 25 Kent, close to 1,000. So those are much larger sites. One of the challenges of this site is it is a relatively smaller site. As Jeff mentioned, to lay out parking on the site is challenging. The fact that we're able to provide a loading berth to allow for this contiguity with the manufacturing space, the industrial space, and a freight elevator. We're happy that Nick could plan it out like that. But again, we know it's an issue. We'd like to talk about it, and we look forward to that.
I guess you have to ask the question, well then, is it really appropriate? Is the building something that we want? That's what we'll all have to talk about.
Sir, in the back.
In order to make sure this manufacturing succeeds, you're eliminating all parking in this the one loading dock, right? Is the manufacturer going to be using their own cars for deliveries, cars for supply runs? Where are those cars going to live on the streets on the overnights? Are they going to live in the loading docks? Are they going to disappear, or are they going to add to basically permanent spots in that neighborhood?
What I can tell you is that given the amount of industrial space we're talking about, approximately 10,000, a little bit over square feet of industrial space, we did a loading dock demand study and, and found that overall the building is going to generate a demand for about 13 uses of loading over the course of a day. And some of those loading trips include things like FedEx trucks, which don't necessarily need to use a loading dock and can do curbside delivery, and this block has curbside loading parking regulations that support that.
Are there any other questions? Doc?
What is the transit system there? What kind of transportation?
Zero.
Trains, buses.
What kind of transit do you have in that area?
So the closest train station, we have the train that's at the G stop at Nassau, and that's about three blocks away. The L should be back on by the time this is done, and that's going to be, God willing, that's going to be on 7th Street, 7th and Bedford. And there's some buses over there. Jeff, could you speak to the buses?
I don't recall the bus lines, but as you said, we have 2 subway lines. We have, as we said, city bike stations, and we have further afield, we have the New York City ferry system as well.
Are there any other questions? Yes, in the back.
I'm wondering what your plan would be for the site if you don't get the permit that you're seeking. Have you thought about how you'd reposition the building?
Sure. So the site itself actually began work prior to the initiation of the special permit, so back in 2015. It was intended that it was going to be a fully commercial building, which would have been a 2 FAR commercial building. When that was programmed and that was planned out, it was determined that the site was severely had severe environmental remediation that would be required, and so they entered the brownfield program as a matter of public record, and there were upwards of, I think, over $3 million poured into remediation of the site. So this is a site which, without putting up one floor or one story, has already generated a lot of economic hardship on the site. So I think the proposal would probably involve a full commercial and community facility build to the full FAR. Again, this is not something that's desirable for the site. We doubt that it's desirable for the area. One of the things that Jeff looked at in his study is that if you do have a full 4.8 FAR with commercial and community facility offices, you end up with at least as much of a demand as far as the local traffic and infrastructure, or more, as Jeff says, than you would for a building under the special permit. So I believe it would be a full 4.8 site. The bulk of the building the envelope would change somewhat, but they really need to generate some return on the site because it's been severely negative to date.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, just to add to that, you would lose the light manufacturing use there, because the only reason that it's there is so that you are incentivized to get the office space. So that would be a huge loss, we think. So.
Are there any other questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you to the chair and the board.
Thank you. Liquor license. We have any speakers on liquor license? That concludes our public hearing session. We will continue with our board meeting. Can we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski, Lisa Bamonte, Louis Baraselli, Gina Barrows, Eric Brozaitis, Tom Burrows. You can't answer from, sorry. Iris Cabrera, Phil Caponegro, Marbone, Stephen Chesler, Michael Chiricello, Teresa Cinciata, Joshua Cohn, Arthur Dubinowski, T. Willis Elkins, Julia Amanda Foster, Samuel Fransos, Chairperson Fuller, Emily Gallagher, Vincent Gangone, Solomon Green, Joel Gross, Sonia Iglesia, Moisha Indig, Bozina Kaminsky, Avram Katz, Ryan Coonan, Yoel Landau, Marie Lianza, Yoel Lowe, Trina McKeever, Toby Moskowitz, Martin Needleman, Simon Newstein, Rabbi Niederman, Karen Nieves, Mario Domerick, Janice Peterson, Dana Racklin, Michael Schlesinger, Isaac Sofer, Robert Solano, James Stewart,
Del Teague. Tommy Torres. Maria Vieta. Stephen Weidberg. Simon Weiser. Tessa Wilson. Thirty-two members present.
Thank you, Jerry. Can I have an approval of the agenda, please? Bozinski and Dr. Barichelli. All in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Can I have an approval of the minutes, please? Trina, Karen, all in favor? Against? One against. Abstentions? One abstention. All in favor? All in favor? The minutes. All in, motion carried. Thank you. Before we do the committee reports, St. Nick's would like to make a special presentation. We'll let them do the presentation at this time, and then we'll do the committee reports. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. It's not just St. Nick's Alliance, it's the Greenpoint Renaissance Enterprise Corporation. So we're here tonight with Tish Cianciata, as well as Jan Peterson, Marie Leonza, Frank Lang. I think we might have one other GREC member out here. And as you know, there was a 38-year effort started by these folks and others many years ago to come up with a plan for Greenpoint Hospital. They did develop the plan and were rebuffed by the city multiple times. And we were very happy that HPD has designated St. Nick's, the Hudson Company, and Project Renewal to develop the balance of the campus following the community plan. So recently, we had a little celebration for that, and we had plaques we prepared. One, to thank our community board. One, that is all of you as members. Report. You want to walk over?
I could walk over. On behalf of GREC, because the best letter we ever had supporting the Greenpoint Hospital and the whole development came from Dallas. So it really was a wonderful letter at the right time when we needed it. And the community board has been really important, as we have said, that all the time we've had 100%, almost 100%, supporting the development of Greenpoint Hospital. So we want to thank you again for all that work.
So thanks Jerry and Dallas and Marie and the whole board and staff. It was wonderful. Thank you.
On behalf of the community board, one, I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done in the community, and we wish all of our organizations in the community work as long as you did to make sure that the project comes to completion. Thank you so much. Never give up. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, attendance, Eric Presides.
Okay, hi everybody. So attendance committee met twice since the last meeting, October 25th and November 8th. At the October 25th meeting, we met about excessive absences for a number of members, and that was 5 or more absences, and also members that were close to the margin, which would be 4. Those of you who got the report and read it, letters went out to everyone. Those with 4 absences are now on notice that the 5th absence will trigger an automatic hearing where you'll come in and discuss with the committee any excuses you may have or reasons for your absences so that we can review the justification for them or lack thereof. In light of that, the 4 members that we had, 5 absences or more, we're scheduled for a meeting on the 8th of November, and we met with 2 of them that came. One was Josh Cohen, and the other one was Tessa Wilson. The other 2 members did not show, Samuel Francois and Simon Newstein. We had an extensive conversation with both members that attended and made recommendations in Mr. Cohen's case. We're requesting excusals for cause. I know Josh was here before. I don't see him at the moment though, but oh, there he is. Hey. We decided, the committee decided that because of his extensive work in committee, both on SLA and the other committees that he is on, and some extenuating circumstances in the beginning of the year, that we would put him on warning for the next 2 meetings and reset the clock in 2019. Ms. Wilson, who is not here, has decided to resign for good reasons, and we respected that decision. We thought that she made a good case. We know that her community work is solid, but that because of future commitments that she has, that she decided that she would resign and reapply in the future, and we wish her well. I think Tessa was a good member for those of you who participated with her. And in the case of Samuel Francois and Simon Newstein, who decided not to come, we recommended their dismissal, so we do need a vote on the dismissals. I don't know if we need a vote on the warning. I think we should for attendance, man. Yeah, it has to be. Okay, so do we need one for the warning? Okay, so I need a motion for removal for Samuel Francois. Steve Chust. Sorry. We have a motion.
A motion's been made and second that we vote to remove Francois and. Oh, I thought he was making a motion. The committee made the motion, so we got a second over here.
Can I question the motion?
I didn't know if you wanted to
question the motion.
Yeah, Trina.
Question the motion.
What's your question, son?
According to what Bottle Wall, you know, I know there was some, they had a back correspondence, the process. The process has to go to a full vote, that's the process?
Yes, that's the process. We're in the middle of the process.
And this is just.
It took us 2 years to get here.
Just on discussion on the right. Just on discussion on the motion. This is resulting from the work that the bylaws committee, other members in the community all got together to revamp the bylaws. So now we are following the bylaws as per the guidance of the borough president and dotting every I and crossing every T. So, motion on the floor.
This motion is second by Trina. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Gene Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski. Yes.
Lisa Bamonte.
Yes.
Louis Baracelli. Gina Barros. Eric Brusitis.
Yes.
Tom Burrows. Phil Caponegro. Iris Cabrera. Frank Carbone.
Yes.
Stephen Chesler.
Yes.
Michael Chiricella.
No.
Teresa Cinciata.
Yes.
Joshua Cohn.
Yes.
Arthur Dibinowski. T. Willis Elkin.
Yes.
Julia Amanda Foster.
Yes.
Samuel Fransos. Emily Gallagher.
Yes.
Vincent Gangone. Solomon Green. Joel Gross. Sonia Iglesias. Moisha Indig. Bozina Kaminsky.
Yes.
Avram Katz. Ryan Coonan.
Yes.
Yoel Landau. Marie Lianza. Yoel Lowe.
Yes.
Trina McKeeva.
Yes.
Toby Moskowitz. Martin Needleman. Simon Newstein. Rabbi Niederman. Karen Nieves.
Yes.
Mario Dahmer. Janice Peterson.
Here.
Yes.
Yes. Yes or no, Jan? Yes or no?
Yes, I'm told by Tish.
Dana Ragland.
Yes.
Michael Schlesinger. Isaac Sofer.
Abstain.
Robert Solano. James Stewart. Del Teague.
Yes.
Tommy Torres. Maria Vieta.
Yes.
Stephen Weidberg. Simon Weiser. Tessa Wilson. Yes, 1 no, 3 abstentions. Members removed.
Motion carried.
Motion to remove Simon Newstein for cause.
Trina Chesler. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, got to do roll call.
Gina Argento. Bogdan Bakarowski. Lisa Bamonte. Louis Baracelli. Yes, no abstention. Gina Barros. Eric Rositis. Tom Burrows. Phil Caponegro. Iris Cabrera. Frank Carbone. Stephen Chesler. T. Willis Elkin.
Yes.
Julia Amanda Foster.
Yes.
Samuel Fransos. Emily Gallagher.
Yes.
Vincent Gangone. Solomon Green. Joel Gross. Sonia Iglesias. Moisha Indig. Bozina Kaminsky.
Yes.
Avram Katz. Ryan Coonan.
Yes.
Yoel Landau. Marie Lianza.
Yes.
Yoel Lowe.
Yes.
Trina McKeeva.
Yes.
Toby Moskowitz.
Yes.
Martin Needleman. Simon Newstein. Rabbi Niederman. Karen Nieves.
Yes.
Mario Dahmer. Janice Peterson.
Yes.
Dana Racklin.
Yes.
Michael Schlesinger.
Yes.
Isaac Sofer.
Abstain.
Robert Solano. James Stewart. Del Teague.
Yes.
Tommy Torres. Maria Vieta.
Yes.
Stephen Weidberg.
Yes.
Simon Weiser. Tessa Wilson. Yes, 2 no, 3 abstentions. Members removed.
Motion carried.
That is the report. Next tenants committee meeting to be announced.
Thank you, Eric. SLA, Bogdan.
Hello, good evening, everybody. The SLA and DCA committee held a meeting on the October 30th. As you see on item number 1, I've closed it Sidewalk Cafe. We had 6 items, 6 application. 1 was new application and 5 was for renewal. The committee make the recommendation to approve 5 of the application and 1 application, number 5, the 114 Nassau Avenue, which is called GFLC Market LLC, do not approve. The applicant before was approved by the committee to have 5 tables and 10 chairs. And now for renewal, the applicant present application with 10 tables and was never approved before by the committee board number 1. So I would like to have the vote to approve committee recommendation for unclosed sidewalk cafe, 5 for yes and 1 applicant for no. Can I have the vote, please?
Cherichello, all in favor? Against? Abstention? Motion carried.
Thank you. On the second item, new liquor license, we have altogether 16 applications. 3 application committee would like to recommend it for approval. 6 application is asking for postpone. 7 application is no, but from those 7, 6 applicants did not show up, and 1 applicant from the 7 no, committee recommendation is do not approve. So the one that's committee recommendation is do not approve based on the viewing the application is number 15, Villian LLC, DBA Villian at 307 Kent Avenue. So can I have the vote to approve committee recommendation for 3 yes, 6 postponed, and 7 no? Can I have the vote, please?
Cohen, all in favor?
Thank you.
Against? 2 against. Abstentions? Motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is renewal application. Committee recommendation is to approve all the renewal application that was submitted to review. Can I have the vote on renewal application, please?
Bozina, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Thank you. And last items, that is number 3, previously postponed items. From those application, we had 9 application, 1 application withdrew the application, 3 application postponed, and 4 application did not show up for the meeting. 1 applicant was approved by the committee recommendation. So can I have the vote for 1 application to approve, 3 to postpone, 4 for not approving, and 1 to withdraw? Can I have the vote, please?
Karen?
I want to know which of the applicant who wrote the application because my community is very disappointed. They don't want to approve of the application of 108 Hooper Street. So I hope that he got the application.
108 Hooper.
It's not on the list.
Not on the list. I believe it's not on the list.
I'm sorry, 308 Hooper Street, I'm sorry.
Where is it?
308 Hooper Street. No, it's not on the list. It is.
Is-
No,
I-
it was postponed. It was postponed. in the report that you sent. It was postponed.
308 Cooper Street, to answer your question, ma'am, is number, or previously postponed number 8. Is the applicant is asking for postpone.
Okay. Karen, all in favor? Against? Abstention? Motion carried.
Thank you. And the next SLA and DCA committee will be held at November 27 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
You have a question, Ryan?
Yeah, I do. I have a question for, I guess, the whole SLA committee. When bars are coming to you,
Chiaratello, please have a seat.
when bars come to you, I have a question mostly about after-hour clubs. So like places that are staying open after hours. When they come before the SLA committee, do they have to say that they're going to be open past 4? Do they have to tell you that they're going to be open till 12 in the morning? So if they are operating that and they didn't tell the committee, even if they're not serving alcohol, is that a violation? Is my question making sense?
Could you clarify what you mean by after hours?
After 4 in the morning,
Nothing is allowed to be open after 4 in the morning.
Okay. Not even if they're not serving alcohol. I'm just
Well,
I'm trying to clarify what is.
There is one place that is suing the SLA
Okay.
to stay open till 6 in the morning.
Okay.
We told them no, the SLA told them no, so they're suing them. And that's that gigantic place over in the industrial park, Mirage or whatever
So
it is.
if
But we don't approve anybody to stay open after
So
4 o'clock.
if a place is staying open after that, then they're operating illegally, I can assume?
They're on their own. They're on their own.
We do not approve application that the hours of operation is past 4 a.m. That's to answer that question and to even answer more. The committee is really trying to approve all the application until 2 a.m. That's what we try to do with the new application.
Simon, you had a question?
Tom, I have a question too, regarding an issue before raised. Anytime anybody open after the hours they put in the application, that's a no-no, right? Not just 4 o'clock, right?
The
Not just 4 o'clock.
applicant, all the applicant is allowing to have the open bar until 4 a.m. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bogdan. Environmental Protection, Willis Elkins. Can we please allow the speakers to speak so we will know what we are voting on?
I'll keep it quick. So we had a meeting last month. We had a meeting last month, and the main item we talked about was the Newhart, the plastics factory in Greenpoint, and there is currently a comment period open by the DEC. It's open for another week, maybe, and the 19th. So, so anybody who's here who's concerned about the plume of toxic plasticizers underneath the factory and the street and the sidewalk, please comment. So we came up with a letter that everyone received in the notes. Hope everyone read it. So it's a lot of stuff that came out of the community meeting that was in early October, things about more transparency with the data of the cleanup, specifically air quality monitoring, a lot of things about making sure that the removal of these toxins is really protective of human health for those that are living nearby, as well as working and even playing, because there's a playground right there. The other aspect we also included was a recommendation to that the DEC weigh in and help however they can in the relocation of the proposed school at the site. So that's our letter. I'd like to make a motion that the community board sends this letter to DEC.
Emily, Dell, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Great, that's it. Thanks so much.
Parks and Waterfront?
Evening, everybody.
You saw the presentation for 50 Kent. The committee that day, we voted to approve with a lot of recommendations, and I have to say that Parks met a lot of them before we even got to this point here. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve, and let's move forward with this, and hopefully Parks will heard a few other comments that we made here today.
Just make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, just, it is building on what you said and what was said during the hearing. I'd just like to say to Parks that, it's great that you're basically adhering to the master plan as much as possible. But I think also what a lot of the community has said is for the designers to bring creativity and innovation to fill it in. And we're just really to urge you just to continue on what you presented here and just, take it as far as you go in terms of that.
What I like about it was, look, we went from that meeting to here, and they answered a lot of our recommendations. They took us extremely seriously. And I always say this to everybody, you could, sometimes you could ask for 10 items. Maybe you're not going to get all 10. Maybe you're going to get 9. But it's good that we have this process and we're working good, forward with it also. As we go forward, I think we have a good partnership going here. So, motion to approve?
Chirichello, Tobin Moskowitz, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you. Yes. Phil.
Phil, did you get one of these?
Yeah, I don't know. They've been floating around. What is it?
Well, it looks like they removed 4 handball courts from McCarran Park, and did that happen? And do we...
I don't know if everybody's past McCarran Park and starting really. The soccer fields are in. The track is in.
Well, they took out 1 bocce court that's not going back. So
No, it's not.
Did they take out 4 handball courts?
I don't believe so.
Beautiful sign.
So this gentleman comes to every meeting that we hold. He's looking citywide at handball courts. So I would take that with sort of a grain of salt. It's not specific to any park that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right.
They did take out 1 bocce court because they did move all the exercise equipment to that area. So it seems to be coming. I don't know of any of our handball courts in that park.
When the city storage site goes into design, I mean, I think that can be a consideration. Because this gentleman does come to every meeting. I feel like his voice needs to be heard.
Okay, any more questions on that item? Any more comments? I need a vote to approve our 2019-2020 calendar.
Comment about that?
Yes.
The October meeting is on the eve of Yom Kippur.
Wow, Mr. Calendar.
Is anybody can check that? Simon, didn't you look through this stuff? Can anybody here verify that? Can anybody here verify that?
Somebody has the special calendar. Special calendar.
October 9th. Yes, it is. It's the eve, right? It's the eve of the Yom Kippur.
But it's not the holiday.
No, the holiday is on the 9th.
Right. October 8th, yeah. Yom Kippur Eve, right. You can't do it. You can't do it.
October 8th.
9 is Yom Kippur. 9 before, the 8th you can't do it.
Or what you doing the night before?
You can't. Start to pray early, 6 o'clock.
Pardon me?
It starts the night before. Right.
So you start to observe the night before, which is the 8th.
Yes.
Okay, huh?
No.
It's the 9th.
The week before is not.
The week before it's not.
It's a Wednesday they wanted, and the second.
What day is that?
No, we meet on Tuesdays.
Right.
October 1st.
October 1st.
October 1st.
October 1st would be
My birthday's the
Tuesday and
15th.
fourth.
What date?
What about the 15th? Something need to be
My
checked
birthday's
in
on a
order to
Tuesday.
confirm the calendar? You have to vote next.
Well, what about the 15th?
September is
The other
the
month
vote
is-
because
the
30th
other
is
month
Rosh
is always like
Hashanah.
like the 13th,
And the first
the
one
12th, the 15th.
Let's just do it, this way. We thought we had all the dates, we thought we had the calendar cleared
We want the 15th.
by our great Vice Chair Simon, but apparently that didn't happen. So what we will do is, pardon me?
We want the 15th.
We have other stuff that we have to check in the office. What we will do is, we will table this and come back and get a vote next month on the calendar, because it doesn't start until, you know.
January 2000.
Yeah, so we got time. We can do it at our December meeting, okay? You can leave anytime you want without me adjourning this meeting. Thank you. Parks minute.
We want Mary. We want.
As written.
Come on, Mary, tell us something interesting.
We have public session.
I know you want to go.
Yes, we'll call our first three speakers on the public session.
Hello, this is for the public session.
I'm sorry, we have a housing and public housing committee report, and I did not know it, because in the future, anybody giving a report, they must fill out this form and give it to me. That way I'll know you doing a report. If I don't get this form, I don't know you're giving a report. So now we have the public housing report.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm stepping in for Rabbi Niederman, so, you know, this is not the norm. Good evening, everyone. CB1 in the house. So, as I said, I'm stepping in for Rabbi Niederman. We had the Housing and Public Housing Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 17th. And there were some folks in attendance there from NYCHA. Actually, the agenda was to talk about capital improvement and repair schedules for various NYCHA developments. Also, the NYCHA budget and funding for the coming years. Changes in management and ownership structure, as well as the new permanent affordability commitment together pact structure, which is something new that's happening. Some of the RAD conversions, I don't know how many of you know about RAD and pact. So this is something that's coming to CB1. So there was a representative there from NYCHA. Her name was Ms. Bartlett. She was talking about those capital improvement needs. And also she was talking about those schedules. It was noted that there's a process where complaint tickets are processed for repairs through NYCHA, but they're not processed through the regular 311 mechanism. And that's something that was implemented back in the Bloomberg administration days. Folks, I'm reading, don't ask me questions because I don't know. It's what it says here. They're saying that the new work order is now more efficient. I don't know if there are any NYCHA tenants here to attest to that, but that's what they said. It was noted that there is a new chair and a new general manager of NYCHA. As we know, Stanley Bresnoff stepped in when the mess happened with Shola. I don't want to mention that. But the mayor has invested $2 billion in the budget for repairs. They're looking at the process so that tickets cannot be lost or closed, and they're also looking at how to expedite those repairs. In reference to the PACT program, they discussed how persons living in NYCHA developments are not very clear on the process. So Ms. Paulina, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce her last name, spoke about the PACT initiatives that are synonymous with RAD, as I mentioned, and PACT stands for Permanent Affordability Commitment Together, and the initiative is part of the Next Gen strategic plan, which preserves the affordability of residents' homes while accessing new resources to make long overdue repairs. There is a fact sheet that's attached, which of course there are no copies of, but I don't know if this was mailed to the committee. It was mailed. So the fact sheet talks about the PACT conversion or the initiative here, and it's important to note that in Community Board 1, there are 1,321 units selected to undergo PACT conversion, and those are at Independence Towers, 744 units in Independence, and 577 units at Williams Plaza will undergo this conversion. And what they're placement of folks while this is happening. They will not raise residents' rents above 30% of adjusted gross income, and residents are consulted throughout the conversion. Residents' rights are maintained in line with public housing protections. What are the benefits? The benefits are permanent affordability for the residents, preservation of public housing properties, ability to raise funds for apartment repairs that we all know are very much needed at NYCHA developments, and the opportunity to address infrastructure and underlying building issues. The ownership will maintain under the NYCHA. The land maintains ownership of the land. NYCHA maintains ownership of the land, but there will be a selected development partner who will operate the renovated buildings under a long-term ground lease, and NYCHA will serve as the administrator. So what's going to happen is that these units are going to be converted to Section 8, project-based Section 8 units. So those folks are going to be able to remain in place paying 30% of their income, or their rent is going to be 30% of their income. So they're not going to actually lose their units or rights to the units. What's happening is that there's going to be a conversion as to how exactly those rents are subsidized, where it's going to be now Section 8 rather than what it was known to be in the past. Like I said, there is a fact sheet attached to this report that was emailed to members, and I guess if anybody else wants to get them, they can access the fact sheets going online to, hang on a minute, www. PACT at NYCHA.nyc.gov. That was easy. So it's PACT at NYCHA at NYC.gov. Thank you very much. Thank you for, but of course.
Tom?
I don't live in public housing, but it sounds like the city is giving public housing over to developers, and then the developers will be paid with Section 8. But what if Section 8 gets cut? Then what happens?
Well, what they're saying is that they don't envision any cuts happening in the future. That's what they said. Hello, I'm reporting on what they said. I'm not talking about that. So here's what they're saying. PACT is a critical part of NYCHA Gen. So it's a 10-year strategic plan to repair public housing to improve residents' quality of life, but they're not really addressing. So NYCHA has 8 developments that receive no public housing funding. Those 2 happen to be one of them. So the developments were originally funded by New York City, city and state subsidies, but never directly by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that funding ended in the early 2000s. So these developments currently share in the federal funds provided by NYCHA's public housing. How does that impact what's going to happen in the future or the future of Section 8? I do not know. Correct. It says, what does it mean to financially stabilize? It just says that shifting the units to Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program will bring new stable revenue to the developments and allow for substantial improvements to be made. Is this privatization? No, this is a public-private partnership. NYCHA will enter into a long-term ground lease with a development partner. that will repair and manage. That's what it says. But NYCHA will continue to own the land. And yeah, it doesn't talk about sustainability in the long term.
It's a Band-Aid fix for the time being, Tom. I don't think Section 8 is going anywhere anytime soon.
I can't answer that question for NYCHA.
And, Jan?
Yeah, but I think in general, right, Tom's got it. It's cloak and mirrors, is that what you call it? Because we're not getting all the information we need. In fact, the meeting was really about the $2 billion that the feds, the state, were pouring into public housing. And we ended up with 4 public housing staff people that talked about everything else but that. So, and I'm just saying is that how the monitoring, first of all, from a gentrification point of view, we have a board here that has been complaining and saying we don't even have a hold on gentrification. So obviously, public housing is one of the best solutions to gentrification that we have. So it's a pretty important rock to begin to put in a clearer way without getting into a long discussion. We need to have much more facts, much more involvement from public housing leaders who probably gave up a long time ago that they would ever be heard. Though I hear some organizing is going on with Antonio and others about getting them together. Certainly citywide, people are looking at and asking for a seat at the table, and I know we talked about that right now no public housing leaders are being involved in this whole scam of the $2 billion that the mayor and the head of the housing authority agreed that they had caused the problem. I mean, people do remember that the mayor of the city of New York said, we have to take responsibility for the fact that this corruption that's taken place in the housing authority, we caused it, not the tenants. So it's been the first time that the tenants have not been blamed. And the mayor said he was gonna have a watchdog group, and my understanding is we don't even know who's on that watchdog group, or it's his friends. You know, I don't know who it is that's watchdogging. So without staying on longer at this time of the night, let's just say we have to have a much more in-depth look. That was a good beginning, I think. We have public housing leader over there hiding in the corner. You know, we had several who came, Williamsburg houses. But people are needing to get a clarity of what they want to say about all this, besides the rats that have been on. You've seen it all. We could be headed for another winter without people having heat again. So we're getting to the cold, and I don't know how many of the housing, the public housing. I just think we have to elevate it to a much higher degree than we have been doing here at this board, and that was a good beginning. And it was hard for you to. It is hard to get all that clear. I'm having a hard time, but I think the rest of us have to know what this would mean to Williamsburg, Greenpoint, if we can't get a clarity of what these things are that Tom is raising, because they bring it up and then you think, what happened to that? And then you're dead. You know, people are forced out.
So there's a substantial number of public housing in CV1. I don't think that anything prevents us from inviting NYCHA to come and address the full board future.
Great idea.
We don't have a set schedule of committee meetings because I don't know the answer. But but the truth of the matter is that we don't meet every month. It's kind of like an ad hoc where it can happen bi-weekly. Sometimes we don't have anybody to actually come and address the committee, so it takes a while. And I'm sure that getting NYCHA to come in, as especially 4 people from NYCHA we had that night. Was it 4?
Yes.
Amanda? I think it was 4 people from NYCHA. That was an accomplishment in itself. So we may be having another meeting in January, but I can't. I'm sorry.
Is it possible to have the committee meetings at NYCHA locations to make it easier for residents to come?
Well, it's a community board meeting. Nothing prevents us from having a meeting anywhere, but I think we should be invited to have our committee meeting at one of these.
First. I think we really need to hear from the presidents of what they're seeing and saying, because otherwise we're repeating what all the tenant leaders are saying citywide, that once again, they are being left out. And generally when they've come to those meetings, in fairness to all of us, people have been in the room and they haven't had a lot of a chance to speak. You may disagree, Amanda. We like to disagree. But I think we have to hear from them what they think help would look like.
Tommy, you got your hand up?
Yes, Jan can help me in this, and also Maria.
Yes, you're a public housing person too.
Yes, the private-public partnership, is it similar to what we have seen with the community centers? Were turned over, NYCHA no longer runs the community centers. It's given to St. Nick's Alliance, for example, or Grand Street Settlement runs Hispanic, children run the Cooper Park houses. I don't know feelings from our presidents, our local presidents from NYCHA. Has that partnership worked? Has St. Nick's been able to provide a better service? As you know, the service that the city provides in terms of NYCHA housing is terrible, and it hasn't changed in 50 years. So maybe this private partnership could provide better services in terms of maintenance or running the NYCHA.
So the idea is that the private partners are not only going to come and do some rehabilitative work, but they're also going to manage the properties. So they're going to manage the units. It's not going to be NYCHA anymore. The private partners will come in and do the management, as well as provide supportive services to the residents of the units.
It'll be great, like, for example, St. Nick's Alliance or our community groups that we really work with.
Well, from what I understand, it's an application process, so that's a question for NYCHA, and they will be selecting the partners based on application, RFP. And I don't know much of that process yet. They weren't very informative in terms of how that's happening.
Amanda?
It wasn't so much a question, but just something pertaining to the meeting. We did request a lot of information from NYCHA, and we're also having difficulty, I think Marie would know too, locating all the presidents that are in CB1 to get them to come to our meeting to hear them.
Yeah, that's a travesty.
Two
Two TA presidents show up, and every time that we convene, I mean, seriously, every time we convene a meeting, we invite all of the TA presidents to come. They don't show up. And I think that by,
phone numbers, and we
they don't
don't know
come.
how to invite them.
They don't come. This time we had two of them because there were NYCHA folks coming to talk about repairs, and because one of them happened to have an issue themselves that they wanted to bring to light.
Hundreds of them are meeting every week citywide, so it's not that they can't come. They'll come to things they think are serious. People
Jan,
get
I didn't
serious.
see your hand.
So I'll raise
We
my
got
hand.
other people that got their hands up. Karen had her hand. Were you finished?
No, I just wanted to say, is there any way we can get the board to get a hold of someone to give us that information, to be able to invite them to our meetings when we have them?
That
We
would
don't
be
have the
helpful.
name.
We tried to get NYCHA to give us that information so that we could reach out, and they refused to give it to us.
I mean, I know maybe 1, 2, 4, that's it. 2 of those 4 came.
Maybe the councilman's office can get us a list of the TAs in the CB1 NYCHA housing. Well, I know, we want to compare.
We can work with us and Councilmember Reynoso to see what we can pull together.
So you think you can pull together a list for us so we can?
Yeah, I mean, the two that you mentioned are in our district.
Correct.
As well as we have.
District, and the others are in Reynoso's.
Right. We also have 2 others in CD6, plus an infill program, and we've met with tenant leaders from all the developments that are affected in our district, as well as NYCHA. We're definitely, there's a lot of questions to be answered here. There's potentially good things that happen and not, so we have to look at it all. We're still having meetings, but I mean, Joel Gross from Williams Plaza, did he? So
Yes, he was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was there.
Karen, did you have your hand up?
No, it's fine, it was already answered.
Tom?
This public-private partnership, which sounds like it's going to an RFP, I think we need a presentation
No.
as to. No? They're just gonna pick somebody out of a hat?
It is going through RFP,
Yeah, no,
that's what they
no.
said.
Did they
There's
say
a
RFP?
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
People have to
Okay,
submit
not you
to the
look, that's what I was
It's not,
thinking.
no,
It's not
there
you.
is an RFP process.
Anyway,
in order
so
to select.
we should know what that process is gonna be and what kind of people they're looking at, because they could bring in
some management company that's gonna be worse than NYCHA, because
Right.
you've seen some of the management companies we have running buildings in this neighborhood, they could bring one of them in, so how do we know, and then if they screw up, how do they get kicked out? How does their contract end? How do we, it's like handing over a bunch of people in a building to be taken care of by a completely different thing that we know nothing about what they're asking them to do. And where's the management money coming from? Who's paying them to manage? They want to make a profit on this, so
Of course, the
somebody's
subsidies.
getting screwed.
The subsidies.
Tom, you have a valid point, and I think that the committee need to spend more time on this issue. I think we need to look into getting NYCHA out here to speak to the full board, because apparently people have questions that nobody here can answer. So we need to work on, the committee needs to put some energy into this now, because we haven't this has been going on for a long time. So it's time that CB1 put some energy into the NYCHA problem, and we need to get NYCHA out here. Dana?
I'd love to mobilize around this, and I'm on that committee, but like, when are we strategizing to mobilize around?
Well, you have to talk to the committee chair, and he's not here tonight.
The committee chair is not here, but I would encourage the committee to start yeah. So we need to, the members need to speak to the chair on a regular basis to make sure that he has meetings on this issue.
Yeah, we have to start calendaring meetings as well.
Jan?
Am I done?
Emphasize that thing you were emphasizing.
Yep.
For Tom, is that when they say each of these things has a different, it's like, what do you call it? There's different legs on this whole change that's going on with the housing authority. Each one is complicated. And the last one we didn't pay attention to was when they said, we got a good deal. We're gonna turn over all the community centers to not-for-profits, not for-profits, the not-for-profits. And all of a sudden, the tenants found, that's what Tommy was trying to say, found out that yes, they could be your neighbor, could be the CDC down the street, but all of a sudden you live in public housing and you have no ability to use your own community center at night, on the weekends, or anything else. So that the tenants have been screwed, and so the trust level is not very high at this point. So we have to get very clear, because we could bring that one back on the table. Who gets to decide, and that goes with Tom's point, who gets to decide and how are they monitored? Because, and are the tenants going to get something to say? They have been totally ignored for the last 20 years on all of this stuff. So I'm just saying is that bring back the community centers to the tenants is something we could begin to push for. That's one.
I think that loud and clear, what you're all saying is that you want NYCHA to come and address this group.
Yep, that's right. And we need facts.
Got it.
And we need to get as many tenants as we can to attend the meeting. Yes, Tom?
The community center RFP was through the Department of Youth and Community Development, which I am on their advisory committee, but we never have meetings.
Right. They run all the youth centers at
And
night.
so Dana now she's the co-chair of the youth committee. I think we could start focusing on that again, because that
Dana,
whole
we love
RFP project just flew under the radar. We didn't even know it was coming. St.
The
Nick's
youth
got kicked.
centers?
St. Nick's got kicked out. Grant Street came in. It was like, whoa, how did this happen? It was crazy.
And you sat on the committee?
There's a.
And it got by you?
Well, no, I only just got on it recently because I found out there was a committee and there were names on it. I didn't even know who the people were. And so I said, put me on, but then we don't have any meetings.
Okay, well, thank God they got you, and I know they'll have some meetings now. Tommy?
If we can organize our tenants, especially the tenants from NYCHA and the which a lot of us here have relationships with our NYCHA presidents, we're gonna have to take the meeting to a bigger place, and if maybe like we did with the Women's Committee, maybe have something here in Swing 60. Just recommend.
We'll decide once the committee start working and we get the ball rolling and see how far we need to take this and how much attendance we got. Then we'll decide on a venue, depending on how many people. Let's just try to get the committee working, get NYCHA to come to community board, and we just keep climbing the ladder. Yes?
I was going to say, I'm sure everyone's heard that Amazon's ready to plop into Long Island City. And between the state and the city, there's $3 billion of incentives and tax abatements and that sort of thing on the table. I mean, that could go right into, helping NYCHA with repairs.
It is in Queens to that one. They're giving it.
Yeah, but the money's coming from the general, it's
The
from.
money is going to Amazon, it's not going to the community.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, but then again, I don't wanna.
Okay, so I think that,
Okay.
that's it for my report, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think you want to talk about
Am I
Amazon.
done?
Thank you, Marie. Public session. Can we have the first three speakers, please?
We have 5 speakers. Would Henny Herzog come up first? Is Henny still here?
I'm covering for her.
No, can't do it.
I can't?
No.
You're board member. This is
I
the
thought
public.
that might be a problem.
Next person is Lorna Favre. Third person is Robert Newworth. And the other 2 people is Alex Marcus and Victoria Chambranis.
I have a quality of life concern. I live here on Power Street 15 years now, and I have new neighbors who are trying to get their money back that they purchased for the home, one techno party at a time. I filed complaints with 311, with the 90th Precinct, quality of life complaint with the mayor's office.
What's the issue? What are they doing?
I'm sorry?
What are they doing?
Techno dance parties. Weekday, weekend, 8 in the morning.
What's the address?
130, why, you want to go?
What's the
139
All right,
Powers.
you're making a complaint about a location.
Yes, it's a home on a residential block. 139 Powers.
139.
Yes.
The chair, top of the chair.
Okay, I've had other people who want the address because they want to go to the party. You know, they serve alcohol. Age is questionable with people coming in and out of there. I don't know where to go beyond this.
What's that between?
Graham and Manhattan. So the 90th Precinct storage space is right next door. I'm in the other side of them, where you have a courtyard between the front and back building. I'm in the back building, so I get the thumping from their speakers. You can hear it in the courtyard. My neighbors across the street can hear them. The car service, 4 or 5 in the morning, the people talking on the sidewalk. You puke the beer cans the next day that are there for at least 24 hours. They have no concern with the garbage regulations. Everything is just thrown on the sidewalk. It's become kind of disgusting on the block.
That's not the, excuse me. May I? Is that the house that? Oh, I just wanted to ask a question.
It was a previous garage. It was sold for $3.1 million beginning of the year.
You can speak to people on the committee afterwards if you'd like to.
Okay. Do the committee recommend how to proceed with?
They're over there, they can speak to you after.
Okay.
You got information.
Okay, great.
Yeah, hi, Rob Newworth. I've lived on the south side for 25 years. I have a similar quality of life issue. 134 Metropolitan Avenue is a disco club. It's called 101 Brooklyn, and they're starting at 10 o'clock at night and going till 4 in the morning. The community board here approved the liquor license apparently in April, and I'm a next door neighbor of it. I never heard anything about this. I've tried to talk with them about doing soundproofing, which they haven't done. And it's driving people on the block crazy. It's also driving the Nighthawk Cinema crazy. And I've talked with them, and there's about 10 or 15 people who couldn't be here tonight who I've talked with. And I just think the community board should know this. When you approve liquor licenses for places, bars are one thing, and we can negotiate with them. But discos that are running thumping bass that shakes my building, I'm a tenant there, but it shakes the 8-family building until 4 in the morning, 4 days a week, is a real problem. And I just wanted to let the community board know about this because I think something has to be done about it. If you're going to give liquor licenses to people, and I support everyone being able to party, but you have to know what they're doing, and you have to know that the building has the appropriate soundproofing for these kinds of things, and that they're not surrounded by residents that are going to be disturbed by these kind of uses. So thanks for your time, and I hope that together we can do something about this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm here with NBPD. As you know, we've been doing a lot of work with the Bylaws and Attendance Committee over the past year to try and institute some reforms, and we've finally come to a very positive conclusion today to have 3 members who are very delinquent to be removed. There was a little back and forth at the last Attendance Committee, which I'd love to have just a clarification on. Basically, the letter that Andrew Gennardes sent on behalf of VP Adams stated that the full board would vote, the general board would vote in order to recommend a removal, whereas the letter of the law that was stated within the letter stated that the full board had to vote to notify the VP of their decision. So if you could just provide a clarification on what that was, that would be great. And then also, we'd just like to have a few things for the record and for the sake of transparency. So we'd like to request a copy of that letter from Andrew Gennardes. I've read it, I've seen it before, but I don't have a physical copy or digital copy. I'd also like to have the copy of the attendance record up to date. So the attendance committee are supposed to send out a letter of notification after 4 absences. That would have had to happen in April, and they're only sending it now in November after their October 25th meeting. So that is a huge oversight and something we need to correct for 2019. We'd also like to have a copy of the sign-in, sign-out times. Today there were 10 members who trickled in up until 7:25 p.m. and some members who left as early as 8:05 p.m. I think if members are going to be coming in and out at those times, the community needs to be aware so that we can see if there's actually a quorum being met. I counted 18 members at the start of this meeting at 6:09. And following up on that point, the 5:45 sign-in time is completely unacceptable for working people. And if the meeting is going to be starting at 6:09, I think we really should be considering working people's schedules and revert the sign-in time till at least 6 p.m., if not 6:15, just so that we can allow more people to speak and participate.
Good evening, my name is Alex Marcus. I've lived in the neighborhood for 10 years. I worked at Automotive High School for 8 of those years. I'm on the Kings County Democratic Committee representing Election District 38, and I wanted to share with the community that there's a provision in the county committee rules that provides for the creation of assembly district committees. This hasn't happened in Brooklyn for over 50 years, but Assembly District 50 committee members got together, we got a quorum, and we met 3 weeks ago with our district leaders, Nick Rizzo and Linda Minucci. And I think this shows an exciting surge of interest in community involvement. If you'd like to know anything more about County Committee or Assembly District 50 Committee, please speak to me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman's report as written, district manager's report as written, announcements and electeds. Benjamin Solitary would like to be acknowledged. Eric Rasky, Councilman Linthal, from Assemblyman Linthal's office would like to be acknowledged. Danielle Zuckerman from Senator Kavanaugh's office would like to be acknowledged. That concludes that. Is there any old business? Is there any old business? Is there any new business? I'd like to wish everybody, you got new business? You, Karen.
Okay.
I just had a question on the new term limits for our community board members. Do we have any full information on that? When does that go into effect? They're still counting votes.
They're still counting votes. I would imagine if it take place, it would take place in 2019.
No, a few years.
The term limit's gonna take place in 2020?
Antonio is a big proponent of it, so he should tell us.
I really don't know. Not really. Yes.
The reason I took issue with minutes earlier was part of it, the monthly, the attendance report to date, and the totals, at the bottom, like the total for each meeting. And for September, what's noted on there is the continuation in October of the September meeting that was postponed. And so it notes the total attendees of being 36, but there's no notation of the actual September meeting that did not have a quorum. It doesn't note that, just taking account of the people who did not, show up for that meeting, in terms of that, being an absence, being, assigned to their total. Because it's like it never happened, only in the terms of that in the October minutes, it says we had a continuation of the September meeting. But there, doesn't, I don't remember containing the sign-in sheet from actual 9/17 showing who was here and who wasn't. And so I just feel like it's kind of a gap in the, just in the attendance monitoring and policy. Does that make sense?
I don't think.
If a meeting,
We didn't
I
have a
understand what you
quorum.
mean, but if the September meeting started, and because of the lack of a quorum, we were unable to close that meeting, right? So the sign-in sheet remains open. So members could and did sign in at the October meeting for the September meeting, because the beginning of the meeting was still the September meeting. Right? You understand? Because the meeting is being continued, so I have no right to pull that sheet off the table because we're still in the September meeting. You understand? It's not the best, I understand what you mean, but I'm bound by that because it's the September meeting. So if you got there for the October meeting, the September meeting sheet was right next to the October meeting. And you were still allowed to sign in because technically we were still in that September meeting. You understand?
Right. But is there room to have a policy where?
It would be up to the bylaws committee. Right. But again, it's a continuation of that meeting. So I understand what you're saying. There's no transparency to say, well, Jerry wasn't at the September meeting, that's why we didn't have a quorum. I understand what you mean, but I don't know how to close that loophole, maybe the bylaws committee. Because again, it's still technically the September meeting.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's something to consider because obviously in September wasted the members' time who were here and members of the community made the effort to be here. And
I mean, my records in the office, I still have the original sheet.
Right.
From the first September meeting.
Right.
And then I have the second one from the continuation meeting, so I can tell you who was there at the September meeting and then who signed in at the September-October meeting.
Karen?
So then maybe we could just make a notation in the minutes when that occurs. Even though it's a continuation, just make it on record that.
If that's what the board chooses, sure. I can't do that on my own. The board would set a policy. So that might be something. Well, that would, if you want to do that, it's a change to the bylaws, that in the instance of a continued meeting, the first sheet, I don't know, you have to word this, the first sheet would have to show who was present, and then the continuation. Because had we not achieved a quorum for the continuation meeting, it would have been continued again, right? Because you couldn't close the meeting you wouldn't have been able to open the October meeting. It would be disastrous. I mean, we've really never had problems with quorums up until late, but I understand other boards do have tremendous problems.
Trina?
Related to that, did the board vote to do a roll call at the end of our meetings when the meetings are closed? And is that something we should be doing?
No,
Didn't we vote on that at one point?
I don't recall that, no.
I
thought we did
too.
Yeah.
We did compromise.
If we did, it would be in bylaws changes. Yeah, we changed it, it would be in the changes we made to the bylaws, right? When Marty did the bylaws change. I don't believe we
Because it's kind of crazy to look around the room and see all the people that have left. There should be a way to hold on to people.
Well, we've been working on this for the last 2 or 3 years with attendance and trying to get people to come to meetings. We can't do it anymore if people, people choose to get on community board. And now there's going to be term limits. Hopefully they'll get some dedicated people that can come at 6 and stay at 9. But, the only thing we can do is sit down with the bylaws committee, and anything we think we can make some changes in, we make them. We got people come late, we got people leave early, we got people don't come, and we just don't know who's coming or going. But, we're supposed to look around the room and make sure that we have a quorum. If we don't have a quorum, we can't vote. That's why we close a meeting and take it up. Last year, we had to close 3 meetings. We're doing good this year. This year we closed 1. We had to do 3 last year, if my memory serves me right. So we're doing better, but we're not where we should be. Ryan.
I just wanted to make a note of the change in sign-up time for speakers. I was curious when the decision was to switch it from the 6:15 close to the 5:45. I only noticed it, this being the first month that it closes at 5:45, and I was just curious when that decision was made. I assume at the executive committee level, but I went back. I mean, to me this feels like something that's already disenfranchising something that is exclusive anyway. So to be able to get here by 6:15 was a struggle, and I thought that when we had the discussion that we were changing the time from 6:30 to 6, which was another decision that was sort of made without a community board discussion, just at the executive committee level. Okay, well, I thought we discussed that we were not going to roll back the time from 6:15 to 6:45, that we would always keep the public sign up till 6:15, because there was a lot of concern when we said we were rolling it back from 6:30 to 6, that many people wouldn't be able to sign up. And suddenly this month, I see in the notes 5:45. And I'm going to say that it wasn't listed on what's always listed on the executive committee agenda, or thing is agenda for the thing. Nowhere did it give us a note, hey, come to the executive committee if you care about this decision, because I think I already got a million emails from people that were like, how is the community board changing the rule to 5:45? It's already too hard to get here by 6:15. And already some people have to take off work to get here to even participate. Then they have to get here at 5:45 and then sit here till 8:30. It's insanity. I understand why we have it at the end, and I know we've played around with it, but to me it's insulting to make someone come at 5:45, sit here for 3 hours to wait to speak, and then have this whole decision made without all of us 50 here people even being part of the discussion. It was literally just told to us. And I just think it's offensive on every single level, and I, as a community board member, am embarrassed to sit on a board that pretty much says most of the people don't even have the right to speak, and I think it's super, 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 super offensive. I know that's probably not the intention, but it comes off as being very exclusive. And
Ryan, it's just another step to try to get us to do things in a timely manner. The idea is if people sign up and we're trying to start this meeting at 6 o'clock. So we can get out of here at 9. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So here's one suggestion: is if someone is limited to a 5-minute presentation on the thing, ding them at 5 minutes and say your 5 minutes are up. The public gets dinged at 2 minutes, but I sit here through presentations on the agenda that say this presentation will be limited to 5 minutes, We sit here for 45 minutes sometimes. Like the DOT anti-smoking one, which is great. I love anti-smoking campaign. There was no reason for us to sit here for 45 minutes.
Our
when their
presentations go long. Our presentation goes long because people start asking questions.
Sometimes even the presenter goes longer than the, I mean, I get the question part and if there's a public discussion, but I'm saying there's many times where the agenda says this presentation is limited to 5 minutes and it goes 35 minutes. That's why we're here till 10
We
p.m.
do not have presentations for 35 minutes.
Well, let's monitor,
Well, then we also don't ever ding someone at 5 minutes, and I mean, like, don't put.
What would be your suggestion?
Don't put a real time period.
We
and
put
ding
in
them
real
when they
time.
say it.
It's just that we can't adhere to it because there's so many questions. It's the public session. We have to listen to the public and we have to listen to the board. That's why we need people to.
I'm gonna say that let's start timing it because I guarantee you the times that put in the agenda are never even close to what's put up there. And
We tried, but you know for yourself, it's hard for anybody to give a presentation in 5 or 10 minutes.
that it's going to be 5 minutes. I mean, like, I'm reading things that are in the agenda. That
So then
say,
what you're saying, we shouldn't put a time limit on it?
If you're not going to hold the presenter, if you're not going to make if you're going to put like 5 things on the agenda and say each of them have 5 minutes only to present, then they get 5 minutes. And yeah, you ding them just like you do the public people. You say wrap up. But I think it's unfair to like constantly push the public voice to the back and limit it and really disenfranchise people. It was 5:45 is ridiculous. It's obscene. Obscene.
We get your point, Ryan.
No, I don't. I mean, like, I'm not sure. Like, it's really obscene.
Julie.
I got lost. Anyhow, I don't know.
I make a motion to have a public discussion about this.
Hello.
We need a public discussion.
You don't have the floor. You don't have the floor, Ryan.
And I will let you know when I have the floor. I understand what she's saying is when the presentations go long, sometimes that thing goes off, you can't hear it because we amongst ourselves, not criticizing us, but I am criticizing us, are running our mouths. You can't even hear that thing. And sometimes, like even tonight, the man was presenting, I didn't hear a word he said. Why? Because we as a board, no offense, we're running our mouths. So the presentation will go long. And there have been times presentations have gone long, and yet the board members, Madam Chair, would state, this will be a special presentation which will go longer than X amount of time. Why? You don't know that because a lot of times we're not listening. Okay, so we as a whole, as a board members, we need to be respectful of the time also. We need to be respectful of running our mouths and having little side meetings during a meeting. And I'm saying this because I was a past president, and during my meetings, I've had many meetings during my meetings. And I'm finding out as I sit on this board, we have a lot of little side meetings going on.
Too many.
Too many. So that holds up a presentation that makes it longer. You don't hear the ding, they don't hear the ding, and we still having side meetings. So only as I can make a suggestion is to that when you do hear the ding, or if you have an inkling that one of the transit information part is going to go long, maybe we should make it verbal all the time and not allow it to go as long as it does. You know, because it does go long sometimes, but it's mentioned. But we need to stop having these little side meetings also.
And the biggest problem we have is that people, they have their hand up for a question. But in actuality, it's not a question. It's a short novel. And then I got to ask them what the question is. A person get here to speak 5 minutes before they ask a question. So we have to be more conscious of how we're carrying ourselves in order to get the results that we want up here. She had her hand up.
So I'm a new member, but when I thought about applying for this and being put on this and not trying to have a novel, I understood that I was going to have long, crazy days and I would probably not want to be here and I'd want to leave at a certain time, but I also understood that I really wanted to be involved in this process. And so if not leaving here at 9 o'clock allows community members that really have pressing issues or want to talk about things, like the NYCHA conversation that started, that is so super important. If that means that we have to stay till 9:15 or 9:30 to have that conversation, to engage members of residents of NYCHA or people that work for NYCHA, like, I just want to be cautious of this idea that like, well, we're trying to do this so that we're here in a timely, I get that. But us being here timely should not disenfranchise community members, especially those that are used to being marginalized. And for many of us, that it's important that they don't feel that way anymore. So like, it shouldn't be, that shouldn't be the compromise. Like, to me, that shouldn't be the compromise. And I take this, and believe me, I'm exhausted. I've been out since 7 a.m. in the rain this morning, running around. And I would love to be out of here at 9 p.m. sharp, but not at the expense of the community getting their voices heard. So like, is there another way to, like, what's the
We're not
other
rushing
way?
to be out on 9, but the building wants us out at 9.
For another location.
The building wants us out at 9.
Let me just say, because we run this building, see the gentleman sitting out in that front office, he's not getting paid by the community board. That gentleman is here an hour after you, and now with live streaming, he might be here 2 hours after we leave.
So should we find another location?
Find a place that'll let us stay free of charge till 10, 11, 12 o'clock.
Is that the only that's the only thing that you need is for me to find a venue? I will find us a venue that is central and allows us.
No, hold up. We're all getting carried away here. Let's just calm ourselves down. We're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can with what we have. We all have to be conscious of us getting here, paying attention. Get up when you want to ask a question. You ask a question and not write a book. You know, like Julie said, we got so many conversations going on. People don't even hear the presentations when they're being given. People want to ask questions. It's just impossible. I can't tell a person, don't finish giving your presentation when they waste all this time putting it together for us. So we all have to be conscious. If we have to make some changes, we make some changes. Yes.
So I'm thinking, I really hear both what Ryan and Julia and Dana and everyone have said. And I used to come to the community board frequently somewhat frequently as a community member. And I remember experiencing the frustration, especially sometimes when someone would present on a topic and then by the time I got to give a statement on what my group was wanting people to hear about it, it was like 2 hours later, people didn't even remember what was being talked about. I'm wondering if it's possible if we could reorganize the way the meeting's done. So maybe everyone knows we will have 3 public people per topic that's on the agenda. You can work out amongst yourselves who's representing what. And after the presentation happens, those 3 people get to speak. And they sign up in advance. Maybe the schedule is sent out. And they sign up in advance. They come at the time that the presentation is scheduled for. So then, if I know that I'm going to speak about the park, and the park is going on 3rd, I know that I need to be there around 6:30 to make sure that I'm there. And then I can still get my family fed or whatever, and I can make it work around that. That's just an idea. I think maybe it's a good idea to think of some different structures that we could do to make things work for people.
Let's hold the applause and get all the information we're trying to get.
I do agree that we should limit the time that presentations take place. I mean, I sit on this community board, but I attend other community board meetings because of my job. And I see how they operate. And I have to say that this board, whether you believe it or not, is perhaps one of the most organized. I'm telling you.
I believe that.
Yeah, no, seriously. And there are restrictions here with the venue that we have to leave by 9 o'clock, and now we've overstayed our welcome perhaps. But I've also experienced, I mean, we're having a tough time having members stay till 9 o'clock because they leave by 8 o'clock.
So then let's
So
work
how
on
we,
that.
well, so they what?
So then let's work on that, which is
Well,
what people are trying
that's
to
a work
do.
in progress.
That's an individual work.
Exactly.
That's up to the individual.
The restructuring of the agenda is something that was done recently for the second time, where the public session used to be way at the end, and that was completely unfair. That people had to come in at 6 o'clock and wait till sometimes 9:30, 9:45 to get to speak when there was an empty room. You know, you heard with crickets when people came to speak. So that was changed around to let the public speak at a time that was perhaps a little more reasonable. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with the 5:45, because I often walk in later than 6 o'clock because of my job. I can't get here at 6. Today was an anomaly, that I actually got here before the meeting started. Tom, stop nodding your head. But it's true, you know, and I do understand, but I also understand the reason why the meetings were moved to 6 and not 6:30. It was because the agenda was so packed that we were here by beyond 9 o'clock, and people were leaving. And sometimes when items came up to vote, we didn't have quorum because people had left, because it was past 9 o'clock. And it's trying to find ways to mitigate all of those risk factors, those issues, and I guess we have to like come together yet again, you know, like for the umpteenth time, to kind of find a resolution that works for all. And I'm sorry, maybe it's not 5:45, maybe it is 6 o'clock, but, I mean, changing the time is not the answer.
I'm more concerned about the public.
This is a board meeting, sir.
I'm more concerned about the public sign up.
Absolutely.
More than extending presentations, or sometimes, you know, certain presentations, we need more information for us in order to absorb. So you know, we could ding them, we could let them know, wrap it up, but it's us, we need to get the information. So I'm not concerned about that. What I am concerned about is having the public get here at 5:45 and wait. So I would suggest going back to the old.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand that that's early. You know, Marie has to be here at this table to do, you know, to do the recording, to take notes, so they can go back and write resolutions. We don't have anybody to sit here and give out these forms and let people sign. She has to be here. If she's out here and the meeting is started, what happens when there's a resolution? What happened to the tape when she has to do the minutes? She can't be out there and be here too. So we got to think about that.
At 6:15.
Huh?
But what happens?
The meeting starts at 6.
Can we assign one board member to be sitting next to the sign?
We can't count on nobody being here at that time.
Well, if anybody that comes in on time, any board member can sit at that signing.
I tried that last year, it didn't work.
It didn't work?
I tried to get two people to stay. I tried to get 2 people to sit and do that, it didn't work.
So then maybe we should rotate it.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
you
should
wait
rotate.
till I acknowledge you. He got his hand up, he had his hand up for a long time.
I just want to say that other community boards allow significant longer sign-in times. I've experienced that with CB5 in Queens, where they allow people to come and sign in up till 7:30 to speak. So the meeting is happening and people can come in. Granted, they might not have as much stuff to discuss as us, but it is possible, and other community boards have that, where people can sign up after the meeting's begun.
We can certainly work on it. I'm sure it needs some work, but like I said, we need Marie at this table at 6 o'clock because we don't need a quorum to start our public session. Once we get 16 people, we can start our public hearing. And that way, we can get out of here by 9, so when we get ready to do committee reports and stuff, hopefully we got a quorum. Julie?
Year sometime, and I do remember sitting here, folks complaining of the fact that we started at 6:15. Why am I coming here at 6 o'clock and the meeting's not starting until 6:15? And I've been here since 5:45 and 6, and now it's 6 o'clock and the meeting is starting at 6:15. What do we want, people? Do we want this meeting to start at 6 o'clock, or do we want this meeting to start at 6:15? You guys got to make up your mind.
People have to be here. When I was on this board, the meeting started, the agenda says 6:30. The meeting didn't start to 6:45 or 6:50. We sat here until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then sometime you didn't have a quorum. So this has always been, so I've tried to do things to make it more convenient for everybody because I know what it's like for people to be out all day, be here half the night. So we've tried to do things to make it easier for everybody, but we can't please everybody. We have to do some looking at ourselves. You can't walk in here at 8 o'clock and the meeting starts and then you got a whole lot to say.
But it sounds like every issue that's being raised is the issue of the member, not of the community person. So why is it that the community person is the one being punished with this 5:45 sign up, and not us as the member being penalized?
They're not being punished. We're trying to start the meeting at 6 o'clock so Marie can be up here.
But asking the community member to come at 5:45 does nothing to motivate the member to get here on time, to not talk when somebody's giving a presentation. It does nothing for. Like,
talk about the member of the community
right.
person.
So what I'm saying is the community person, the community member that wants to speak, that has to be here by 5:45, right? That does not, that stipulation of 5:45 does not motivate the community board member to be here at any certain time. Like that, it's a punishment on the community member versus the community board member. And it seems like all the concerns being raised tonight are of the community board members.
The community
So
board member get their act together,
the
then the
penalization
community
needs
doesn't
to be on
suffer.
us, not the community member. That's all I'm saying.
Let's not belabor this. I'm going to take Karen's question and then we're going to adjourn. The executive board will sit down, take all of this under consideration. I do believe that we need some more instruction with the sign-in. I don't know how we're going to do it. I do believe, and this was a start to restructure it. I'm glad we had the conversation. But I do believe that if anybody sign up for this board to be on this board, they should walk in here 10 minutes to 6 and be ready to start the meeting, rather than walk in here at 8 o'clock and ready to, Madam Chair, can we adjourn the meeting?
Right, but I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. To motivate that behavior is not to make community members be here.
Dana, we're not trying to punish anybody. We're trying to make this compact so it all works, so everybody can be heard, and we can basically get out of here at 9 o'clock because we're supposed to be out. We're just trying to bring it together, make it more compact, so everybody can speak.
Can I make a suggestion then? If it's the point that Marie has to do the minutes and the notes and the resolutions.
The recorder has to be on.
I understand that. Can we then maybe all agree on doing a rotation that a board member will sit there and let the public sign in?
We got people that's willing to do that? Okay, let's do this. When our calendar go out, I want somebody to send us an email and tell us that you will be willing to sit at that door and take the public speak. You'll be willing to come in here and sign them up. We'll talk about it at the executive board meeting. Until we haven't decided yet, Simon. We will sit down. We will talk about this in the executive meeting. I know you had your hand up. It better be important. It better be important.
Just to switch topics real quick, I just really want to think that every community board member and committee should think a lot about Amazon's announcement moving to our neighboring Long Island City and the impacts it's going to have on transportation, housing, small businesses, everything else in our community. Even though it's next door, it's going to have a huge impact. So I think that we as a community board should really think about what power we have. Also because the state and the city are going to go through a process that's going to, go past the community boards and the city council. So we should really think about what we can do.
You have a great point, but right now we're trying to take care of our house first and get our house in order. We all know about Amazon because it's on the news every day. But right now we're trying to get our house in order. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Have a safe one.